Happy Thursday or Friday if you're on the other side of the pond and it's the early morning hours. This is Defense Diaries, and I'm your host, Bob Mata, and I am joined once again by my beautiful, brilliant, amazing co-host, Allie. What's up, girl?
Hey, babe. Hey, all.
So before we jump in, and we're going to be converting this into a traditional pod, so I'll do like a traditional opening after but I'd be remiss if I didn't immediately thank all of you. You guys, my daughter Cameron, Allie did just the most adorable live, which I watched after you guys did it. I was so cute. But Allie, it really was. It was adorable. But Cameron and I had done a vertical live earlier in order to promote her fundraiser for her cheer team. And you guys, I just can't even tell you. You are such amazing people, and it really blew me away. Cam brought it up to me a few days ago. I'm like, oh yeah, of course. I'm like, oh, we'll do a little short live, and I'm sure some of the subs and some of the members will donate. But you guys, man, like that, like when I'm talking about family on this show all the time, that's why. I mean, it's things like that just are really touching.
They really like popcorn, babe. They really like popcorn.
There's Allie always trying to diminish.
Well, Miss Wildside said it. So
it was only the popcorn. Somehow I don't buy that.
Right.
You guys are amazing. I just wanted to thank you from the bottom of our hearts. Cameron, I'm sure will be popping in.
Yeah, she wanted you to give like a special shout out to somebody.
Yeah, I mean, it's a special shout out to all of you, really. But I mean, some of you were insanely jealous.
Generous, you mean?
Oh, yeah, generous.
He says jealous because he's pretty sure that a lot of her teammates are jealous.
Yeah, it's like we were just having this conversation in our family chat, and my brother-in-law's he's like, man, because they show the leaderboard, and he's like, your other teammates have to be like pretty jealous and irritated at this point because it's
not too late. It's going on for 4 days.
Yeah, it's not too late, and we'll drop the link for that in the chat.
And I am doing a backflip. Cameron's doing a backflip live.
Not a backflip. Cameron is doing one backflip per bag of popcorn purchased.
No.
Don't shake your head.
What do you mean a back tuck or a back handspring?
Whatever the hell she's doing.
How's she gonna do hundreds and hundreds of back tucks?
We're selling hundreds and hundreds of bags.
Oh, it's a lot of popcorn. Popcorn must be expensive then.
Look, Cameron and I discussed it prior to coming on. So I mean, she realizes what it's gonna be.
Well, I think the people might cut her. Maybe we max her out somewhere.
I'm
doing one.
We'll see.
Backflip on a trampoline. Okay. So
yeah.
And that was against my husband's wishes.
Yeah. So that's but we just wanted to thank you all. You guys are amazing.
Very sweet and generous.
Truly, it's just a beautiful, beautiful thing that you guys do. And I'm just always amazed at this community that we built. And it's I'll start going, and then Allison will be trying to shut me down because I can get all gooey and emotional. But I think about this, and the thing that I love, and I want to keep it short, but the thing that I love most about YouTube is the fact that while we're live, we can communicate with you all, because there is a true sense of community there, unlike any other platform. I love my podcast. I'll always do my podcast, but in terms of the connectivity, you kind of got to go through third parties, whether it be Facebook or Twitter or X or whatever, and it's like, this is real-time interaction. I will never not do lives on YouTube ever. It's like, people are like, you should do more videos, and yeah, I should do videos, but I will always do lives because I love interacting with you guys, and it means a lot to me. So, all right, enough of that schmoozing love that I have for you guys, because it is deep, deep love for y'all.
When you do the official intro, say what we're here for and what and then what day it is.
Okay. Why? Why does the date matter?
It's like it just
No, I like it. That doesn't make any sense because Darren doesn't get him.
Where in time we are when we're saying it. Like what? Where? Yeah, I think it's important.
He just texted me that your old Mac that was brand new when he took it crapped the bed.
Well, it has a. It's.
I mean,
it's under warranty. I think.
Still, I don't think so.
All right, do the intro and then let's welcome Steven. He's sitting back there patiently.
Steve's super patient. He's the most patient guy in the world. So speaking of YouTube, tonight's guest, who is a dear friend of mine, he's a ride or die. He's an absolute brother to me. And he had to have been one of the very first shows that I did when I decided to get into the YouTube game. And I've just loved him ever since. He's as genuine as you can get. He's as sweet as you can get.
Aren't you going to say on the official one?
Huh?
You're going to do the official intro and say that? Poor guy's
I'm about to make you start doing the intros if you keep interrupting me during them. It's like you're breaking the flow. Now I forgot everything I was saying.
I know, but I hate for you to say it before you start the official. I thought you were going to redo the official intro to the show for the podcast.
How about fuck the official intro? How about that?
All right, then I'm sorry. Then I do.
Now I'm not even doing it. Now you're doing it. Can I just bring Steve on and give it?
Yes.
Did you let the dog out before you came down again?
Oops.
He's crying.
I'll be back.
I don't know why she does that. It's all like every time we go on a live, she'll let the dog out, and I hear the poor guy. He gets wrapped into the trees. It's so sad. I can hear him crying down there and my heart's breaking. All right. So without further ado, let me bring my brother from another mother on. Steve, the host of the fantastic channel, Publicly Buzzed. What's up, brother?
What's up, man? What's happening?
Man, I was trying to give you some love, and Alex.
Oh, that was amazing.
Man, she's always like fucking shooting my shit down like that. I don't know why.
Oh, that was amazing. Fuck it, we'll do it live.
Well, welcome, brother. It's
Thanks,
long
man.
overdue that we've had you over at our house to play. So I'm really glad you're here because Steve hit me up. He's like, "Hey, you want to come over for Thursday? You know, we like to fuck with old cops interviews." And I was like, you know what, man? And then he brought up Kohberger, and I had been wanting to do Kohberger because there's some very interesting stuff going on with it right now. And I've had my my head so far up the Karen Reed case's butt that, you know, it's been hard to come up to breathe. So when Steve hit me up, I'm like, yo, why don't we do it the other way? Why don't you come hang with us? That way I can introduce you to some of my crew that may not have ever had the pleasure of meeting you. So in Steve's channel over at Publicly Buzz, we will be dropping the link for his show all throughout the live. I have full expectations that everybody in here that has not subbed to his channel will do so because I always go and check. I like to, I make sure that you guys do what you're supposed to do, which is go sub to my brother. So
you won't regret
it. He won't regret it. He puts out great content, and he's got all kinds of like. Y'all just know, like, you just know, you know, kind of like the true crime Steve and Publicly Buzz. Steve's got a whole nother thing with his love of wrestling. He's got a whole different thing going on, which you should promote at the end of the show. You should like, because I'm sure we got some wrestling fans out there. Because you do a lot.
I've also got some really cool stuff coming up on Publicly Buzzed. I'm gonna tease also. So,
dude, you're gonna promote it all.
Please do. Well, it's great to have you here because you're the everyman, and you actually have knowledge about the Kohberger case. You've been following it. I don't know how in-depthly, but
yeah, this is the longest one that we've been. Well, I've been covering, you know, since we started. That's what we, you know, cut our teeth on was the Kohberger Idaho Four stuff. So, yeah, thanks a lot, Allie. I'm excited to get in here.
Yeah, you've been you've definitely been putting a lot of work into Kohberger. So you know, and it's like when you kind of dig into a case like that, you kind of like you're entering my world. You know, it gets to be a lot, you know, when you're really, really digging in. And, you know, it's a huge case and it's kind of been quiet. You know, Karen Reed's kind of all the rage right now in terms of cases that are active and a trial that's going on. But I'm here to tell you, when that Kohberger thing is happening, the whole world's going to be watching. Like, just remember back when those awful crimes took place. Like, that was like everybody on the planet was like just completely hypnotized by that case, and were they going to catch this person? And like, it was like daily updates, and
man, the manhunt, the very beginning was insane. Like, that month and a half was just nail biters. Like, that's right when I first started. Actually, the first day I technically officially streamed was the day he got arrested, because I was like, oh shit, I gotta go live. So
wow.
I mean, I was just making videos.
It was crazy. Nice. And I forget where we were when they made the arrest. I feel like we were visiting your parents, babe. Like, we weren't at home. I think
no recollection of it. So
I think we were in Pennsylvania when they made the arrest. So, which was ironic because he got arrested.
Yeah, he got arrested in Pennsylvania.
Yep. So, all right. I was just kidding, babe. I'll do the official opening real quick. Like,
I think you have to re-intro Steve.
I will. It'll be much shorter. I wanted to give him the love on the.
Well, I think he deserves it on the pod, so I don't know. Might have to do it again. All the love.
I'm making it on the pod also. That's awesome.
Well, are you gonna interrupt me again?
I might. All right. I promise I won't. I'm muting myself just in case.
You can't help yourself. All right. Welcome to the doc. Whoops, I fucked it. Welcome to the docket. All right, I'm gonna ready. Welcome to the docket. Fucked it again. Welcome to the docket, presented by Defense Diaries. I'm your host, Bob Mata, and this is our continuing coverage of the people of the state of Idaho versus Bryan Kohberger. I am once again joined by God damn it. I'm going to do the whole thing over. Y'all really? Going to, this is what it's like when I'm doing like my actual pod, like
you could just say I'm once again joined by.
What do you mean?
It's your call. Do the whole thing, or you might be able to.
You're acting like it was like 5 minutes long. It's like 15 words. Welcome to the docket, presented by Defense Diaries. I'm your host, Bob Mata, and this is our continuing coverage of the people of the state of Idaho versus Bryan Kohberger. Today is May 22nd. 2025, and I am once again joined by my beautiful and brilliant co-host, Allie. What's up, girl?
Hey, babe. Hey, all.
So I'm excited tonight. We have a guest with us, a dear friend of mine, somebody who's been covering this case over on his channel, Publicly Buzzed, for a long, long time, really probably since the manhunt started, since the awful crimes are committed. My friend, my partner in crime, Steve. What is up, brother?
What's up, man? Thanks for having me. I'm super excited about this.
Yeah, I am thrilled to have you over here. It's you've never been over here, so it's great to have you. And there's no better case for us to dig into than Kohberger. And
we've both visited you on Publicly Buzzed, so I'm glad that you're here, and I'm glad that people are going to be able to get the everyman's opinion from someone who actually knows a lot more than every man. But you know what I mean. You are an everyman, so
that's true. Yeah. Which I love that, because I can make as many mistakes as I want, because I'm not actually an expert. I can.
Yeah,
I like that position, honestly.
I think a lot of people just relate to your opinion, like the everyman.
Yeah, I think just to kind of clarify what Allie's saying is, we're lawyers. We look at things through a lawyer's lens. You're the everyman. You're the juror. You're the like Allie and I would never get picked for a juror. We could get jury notifications that we have duty, but when we go in, they're going to bounce us. You could actually get called and serve on jury duty. So, I always look forward to getting, and you're a straight shooter on top of that. You know what I mean? It's like the one thing that you don't do is you don't bend to the will of the people. You don't say shit. Like, you say what you think, and you don't care what people think about it. That's what I do over here. I get so much shit. People think that I think everybody's innocent, which is insane, So, but like when I'm actively involved in a case, and I think that there's been something terribly, terribly wrong that's happened in that case, I'm going to voice it. And I don't, like, I took a lot of heat on Richard Allen, and I didn't care, because I strongly believed in what I felt. And first and foremost, he did not get a fair trial. I will die on that hill. And beyond that, after the trial, I felt very comfortable in saying I believe that they have the wrong man in prison, because that's always my thing. That's always our thing. We all form initial opinions on cases, and that's normal. But
so, Bob, tell the people, speaking of initial opinions, for those who don't know, what is your initial opinion on, because you used to not refer to him by name because you thought that's what he wanted. What did you call him before?
The perpetrator, or
oh, I thought you had like a cute name. Okay, maybe it wasn't.
I do remember the early days when you would first come on that you didn't like to say his name.
Yeah, I got
I'm sure that's exactly
when in here, like, I thought that the initial reading of the probable cause affidavit was pretty strong, and that it leaned guilty to me. And, but like, I'm coming out of the Richard Allen case where that probable cause affidavit had dropped 2 months prior, 3 months prior, and that thing was as thin as crepe paper. I'm looking at that, and I was like, where's the case? Where's the evidence? Like what are they? They're trying this guy for these 2 homicides based on mere presence in some unspent casing. I'm like, where's the actual evidence? You know what I mean? So when I'm reading through the Kohberger PCA, it's pretty heavy duty, in terms of, now that's first blush though. You know what I'm saying? So you're reading it and you're like, they've done their homework. They've done a lot more investigating than they did into Richard Allen in terms of that case. So when I was comparing the two, and I couldn't help but do it, I'm like, okay, this is what I would consider a PCA that leans guilty, always with the premise that everyone has to wait until trial because none of that evidence is tested. None of it's been introduced and admitted into evidence. We don't know what's going to come in and we don't know what's going to go out. You have to wait for trial until you reach a final opinion on any case. That's just facts. However, that being said, because we're human beings, all of us form initial opinions on whether or not, and what's fascinating to me is to look at the way that social media has morphed how we look and view at true crime. We have more access to more documents as people not involved in these cases than in any point in history. And I'm talking like hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people dig into these cases, and it's just an entirely different thing than it's ever been. I mean, for the first 10, 15 years of practicing, I never heard anybody talking about probable cause affidavits except for lawyers. Now, I could ask anybody in here what's a PCA, and they're all going to be like, probable cause affidavit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And they've all read them. It's just, it's mind blowing. I love it. I love it because it's transparency in the courts. It's the public keeping an eye on what's going on in those courtrooms across the country. And, like, the impact of it, we still don't even know. Like, I mean, the impact on social media and things that are going on out in the YouTube world and the Twitterverse or the Xverse, whatever the hell you want to call it, and the impact that it's having on trials is hard to say. I mean, certainly the reach into which is going to dovetail very nicely into what we're going to be talking about partially tonight, which is the Dateline episode and how the defense is extremely concerned about its impact on Bryan Kohberger being able to get a fair trial, namely being able to impanel a fair and impartial jury. So, which is a real thing, which is like kind of the gauntlet that's been thrown down for us as the public in terms of how are we impacting these cases, these high profile cases, because inevitably, the reach is much greater than it's ever been. I think that there's going to have to be some legislation that's passed. There's going to have to be some changes with respect to, because it's never going to get less than it is now. It's only going to get bigger in terms of our ability to access all this information. And, and people are going to have opinions and people are going to put out information. Some of it's straight up bullshit. Some of it's complete lies. Some of it's accurate. And it's really, really hard to tell what the truth is, and that's why the moral of that story is you have to wait until trial to find out what the actual evidence is, what's going to be admissible, because everything that happens pre-trial, Them's just words. That's it. So, but in terms of my initial instinct, I happen to think in this case, and it's my initial opinion, that they've got the right guy.
And I just want to comment, on the, sorry to Steve, if you were going to go, but
no, you're good.
One of the comments here, because we are recording this podcast live from Kraken, is now we must unbrainwash the masses that someone being arrested means nothing. Someone being arrested still and always will mean nothing. Absolutely nothing. And like you're all commenting, the PCA has not been tested, as Bob said as well. The evidence hasn't been tested, but just based on the evidence that we have heard so far, or the state's resuscitation of the evidence so far, it shows that it's got some legs. Now, I have noticed that some of their evidence, when it's been tested pretrial, is coming up short. There are issues with some of that evidence. So as Bob's saying, he's keeping, an open mind. You can't tell anything until trial. It's just to say there are some things there that support the state's case in this case, in the Kohberger case. But obviously all those things need to be tested. And there have been some flaws shown, especially in the whereabouts of the phone, the direction that the car was traveling, which was a big issue for me. But the defense thus far, at least from their pleadings, have acknowledged and said that they are not disputing the fact that a single source DNA profile consistent with Bryan Kohberger's was found on that sheath. And that's from their own pretrial pleadings. How they plan to explain that, or if there is an explanation for that, we will have to see. But that's obviously one of the things that, says, well, we're going to need an explanation for this at trial.
Yeah. Where are you at with it, Steve, right now? Like, where do you sit with that case?
Right now, I kind of lean more on the side that they got the right guy. But my thing is, I flip-flopped a lot. So that, honestly, in the true crime community, from what I've learned, does turn people off. Like, if you're not hardcore on one way, you almost end up in like this team aspect, and you don't defer from one side. It's almost all I see. And I kind of jump around, but at this very moment, I kind of feel like, ultimately that they've got the right guy. But to bounce off what you were saying originally there, I remember, because I was coming off of basically the streams in the days of what I really did was lean into the conspiracy stuff heavily. Like, that's really what I was streaming. That's really where I was going, because it really attracted the views. And, I blew my channel up with that. When Bob was really starting to come in, that's when I was really starting to, I really started to watch people like Bob and other, he was appearing on channels. I know the first time I seen him was on Jay, and I started seeing some different experts have different opinions, that's still kind of really split, but that's what made me kind of take it a little bit more serious, especially at that time. And I know Bob got a lot of heat coming out and saying that PCA had legs on it. And that was in like April or May, June 23, around that time. So we're 2 years into this now.
Yep.
We are 2 Dateline docs into this now. The first one was a little bit more scandalous, sensationalized, it felt like. But this one, I don't know, man. Like, I understand where we're at right now. We're going to be talking about the continuance that Ann Taylor wants, and which, honestly, from everything from looking at people discuss it and experts, makes total sense, because, again, at the end of the day, we're looking for a fair trial for Bryan Kohberger. I still want that as well, and I won't be truly convinced until I see it laid out in court.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that people, I think, kind of tend to forget in terms of trials and kind of the importance of doing it right the first time is that if it's not done properly the first time, meaning that you have vigorous advocacy on both sides of the aisle, both the prosecution and the defense, you're really tinkering with the concept of the thing getting overturned on appeal, which in a case like this, where you've got 4 devastated families, the concept of them having to sit through a second trial because they didn't get it right the first time, should give you pause. I mean, the entire concept of wanting to get it right and having it done properly the first time is enormous. I mean, it's the way that it needs to be done. And when you're talking about a death penalty case, which if you read Ann Taylor's most recent motion where she's asking for the continuance, I think a lot of people are thinking, oh, well, it was the whole Dateline thing. Well, yeah, that's certainly a part of it. But the bigger part of it is the defense's ability to be able to get everything that needs to be done in a death penalty case for the defendant so that it can withstand appellate scrutiny done. And when she's saying in the first 35 pages is we're not done with that. Like this extensive background that has to be done on the defendant. They have to interview everybody from his past that they can get a hold of.
So why don't you take a step back and tell people what was filed and then give us the summary of it?
Well, all right, but I'm going to do it in backwards order. Well, actually, I'm going to do it in chronological order. The first thing I'm going to cover, and we've covered this briefly, is I'm going to cover Judge Hippler's order that came down back on the 15th of May.
Remind everybody about the Dateline issue, or should we start there?
Well, yeah, like the Dateline issue has always been kind of like a thorn in my side. Like going back to the first episode, and if you guys saw that first episode, they had Coffindaffer on that episode.
And Coffindaffer is a retired or former FBI.
She's retired. Yeah, she's retired FBI, and she's got a pretty big profile on X, and I think she started a YouTube channel. So she's got a voice. She's got a voice out there. And I mean, she
gets a lot of views on her stuff, and
she does
a lot of hate.
She's been named in the filings before.
She has, and so in that particular episode, the first one, they had her on there flat out saying that she had an inside source at that point. Who was telling her that they had the Amazon searches for the sheath, and I think something to the effect that he had purchased the knife in the sheath, and that she had that from a source, a law enforcement source. So I immediately after watching that, I went to Twitter, and I'm like, man, this is insane. I'm like, there's a gag order on this case, and this woman's getting on Dateline, which a lot of people watch, and is saying this. I fully expected, and at that point, Judge was the judge. I said, I would like to see Judge Hall Dateline in and try to get them.
I remember that. I remember you were saying
that. And so, because I was pissed off about it as a defense attorney, I'm like, that's ridiculous. Like
she really shot off on Dateline. I was hoping maybe you'd have your tweet available to read, but
I fired on Dateline. If you want me to pull it up, I can.
Yeah.
But you talk while I'm
all right. So Bob's going to pull his tweet.
Well, Allie, have you watched the new Dateline special as well? I asked Bob earlier and he said he did, but
I don't know why I thought maybe it was similar to the thing that they had done before. So I think I did watch it with him. I just don't actually remember anything. He must have watched a lot without me. Now I think I need to rewatch it because you said
there's a lot of new stuff on there, a lot of new information.
You said it wasn't as sensationalized. You didn't think?
The first one I felt like was a lot more clickbaity. I don't like the new one. If these leaks are legit, then holy shit, like they're pretty fucking crazy to me personally. I think the timestamps that they've pulled from the click history from Amazon. I think. I think that he's going to be, but a lot of this stuff could be thrown out now because maybe some law enforcement officer sold some information to Dateline or NBC. I mean, that's really messed up.
Yeah, I've got to get clear on what the difference was because a lot of that was in pretrial filings recently, but I know obviously that there was stuff that the judge clearly indicated was leaked, and it goes back to at least what Bob had said about the initial episode about them leaking information. So it's definitely an issue, but I do not think that the result of that could be evidence getting thrown out that was, constitutionally discovered. But the judge can do just about anything. I think it would more be a continuance would be one thing to put some space between when the masses watched the episode, when it initially aired and when trial is. I know you said
that totally makes sense. Like, I mean, because it is crazy. And again, the jury pool, wherever they're at, is it Ada County? I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but where they're at in Idaho, I'm sure it's not that large compared to, just think about, Luigi Mangione, right? Like the jury pool there, again, this is huge. It's maybe the biggest thing. It's in media. You have the president talking about this, whatever. It's huge. But again, in Manhattan, there's millions of people. You know what I mean? Like in Idaho here in this county, I totally understand where the defense is coming from and Taylor. And like you're saying, get a little bit of space between. But I did make this tweet earlier. I literally said this today. Hold on, let me get this here. I said, would a significant delay matter for Bryan Kohberger if activity quieted down for a while as the trial approached again? Monetization through mainstream media like Dateline and online sleuths would surge again, is honestly my opinion. So even if there's like that little, because we kind of had that, right? Like from the very out the gate, you have him getting arrested. It was just viral as hell. It was for a good year. Had kind of a little bit about, there was still lots of action going on, and diehards are still paying attention. But now we're a few months out from the trial, and Dateline, one of the biggest shows that you could produce a true crime, situation with through NBC and on Peacock on national television. That's huge. That's insane. So no, I totally understand where the defense and Taylor are coming from, and Bryan Kohberger. I mean, at the end of the day, he does deserve a fair trial, no matter what I think. Even if I think that they might have the guy, and I'm being convinced by evidence that I even saw on Dateline, dude. No, I mean it's messed up.
Yeah, no, for sure. But after Bob made his tweet, kind of striking out at Dateline for being so irresponsible.
Here, let me ask: I always use Twitter on my phone, so on the Mac, I cannot find how to search in my tweets. Like when I put in, do you guys know how to do that? Because when I go to the search bar, when I hit for my account, like if I go into my account, it's not searching. It's like a completely different setup. I mean, I could just read them instead of like wasting a bunch of time.
Oh yeah, you don't have to put them up.
Okay. All right. So yeah, so it starts. So it was right after that thing aired, and I'm I think my first tweet was that it was quite a war I was in there. Yeah, I mean, I was going off on Dateline pretty hard. Hard that
read us the original post.
I'm trying to find it. Oh. There's a lot. It's
yeah, I can only imagine hunting for that, honestly. I'm trying to do it myself back here, and it is difficult. I'm using keywords: Defense Diaries, Jennifer Coffindaffer, and Dateline.
All right, so I think this is right around one of my first ones. I said that considering, so I tweeted this on like 5/19/23. I said, considering this case is gag, Judge should haul Dateline and its producers into court and order them to reveal their unnamed sources, because if true, the gag has been massively violated and the leak needs to be held in contempt. And so that was the first one that went out. I went on to say, without naming the source other than stating it was law enforcement, Dateline NBC and Dateline Keith are reporting that they have confirmed that the K-bar knife and sheath were purchased by the defendant on Amazon. This better show up at trial, or Dateline is completely sold out. And then I went on to say, it's not illegal, but it's a violation of the number one tenet of the rules of ethics, attorney-client privilege. Oh, that's a different case.
All right, so tell the people what. So then, several months later, we were at True Crime. Crime Con, and you ran into who from Dateline?
So I had a history with this particular. So I had fired on Dateline pretty heavily, And so I'm sitting at my table at CrimeCon with my producer, Darren, who's just, a menacing figure is one way to describe him. And I get approached by Shane, who happens to be the same producer on the Kohberger. He produced our episode on Dateline.
And when Bob says our episode, a Dateline episode that covered a criminal trial that we handled.
Right. And so he comes up and he like leans over. He's like, "Hey man, like, I don't appreciate your putting us on blast on Twitter like that." I'm like, I don't appreciate, so I was very upset how they characterized and how they had Allie appear in their episode with us on it. They made her look like she was screaming at people and shit. And it was like all taken out of context. So, I stood up and I'm like, well, I don't appreciate how you made Allison look in that episode. So, guess what? I don't give a fuck how you feel.
Shit.
Yeah. And then,
so I mean,
that's amazing.
And
it definitely affected Dateline, the post. They took it to heart, as they should have. They shouldn't be putting things out in violation of the gag order. And now with the new episode, go ahead and start with where you were going to start, with the judge's order.
So so that new episode drops, and shortly thereafter, I'm going to pull it up. Do you guys want me to pull it up or keep it off? I'll pull it up.
Yeah, pull her up there.
Yeah, because I love this document. I am a huge fan of Judge Hippler.
Like, dude,
people are like, "Oh, I don't like this touching his face."
Dude.
Stupid shit when they're watching. And I'm like, none of that shit matters. He's listening. You could tell by his court orders that he's listening. You could tell when he came onto the case initially, like Mandy's got that sound bite. And he's like, "Look, if I'm being honest, I can't tell you I'm happy I'm here, but I'm going to handle the case, because when they file, and that's one of the problems with this case is the change of venue was granted. So they moved it to the much larger county. And granted, it isn't huge because it is Idaho, but it's where Boise is, and like the major cities. So
one of my favorite things ever, though, is you shutting down the discourse of people that tried to get it to make it a thing that Gohl and Hippler were going to be similar in the way they were handling the cases. Just trying to compare it to Delphi and Richard Allen out the gate. And you're like, all right, let's stamp that out immediately. That was,
dude. It's like I keep trying to tell people, I'm like, please, for the love of God, do not compare the Bryan Kohberger case to the Richard Allen case. It's like, for like, any cases are not comparable to one another. The fact patterns are always different. Everything's different. Like, there's nothing the same about two crimes. And in those particular cases, never the two shall meet, in my estimation. They're very different cases. In terms of, like, we are going to be seeing, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, we're going to be seeing a hell of a lot more evidence against Bryan Kohberger, which ultimately it's going to be the jury who's going to decide if it's enough to convict him. But they didn't have anywhere near the amount of evidence that they purportedly have against Bryan Kohberger that they had on Richard Allen. They didn't have shit on him. Nothing. They had nothing on Richard Allen. The people who claim to see him on the bridge, don't get me started on Richard Allen. It just gets me like, still, like, just so you all know, I haven't gone anywhere on Richard Allen. We're biding our time on that thing. All right. So this order dropped on the 15th of May. I think within a few days of that Dateline airing.
And this is 2025.
This is 2025, and it's from Judge Hippler, and it's a document and records hold order. Okay, so and he goes on to say, based on sensitive information not previously publicly circulated that was reported during a recent Dateline TV program related to this case, and he footnotes it, and it's called The Terrible Night on King Road, which is, what a terrible name for an episode anyway. And the defendant, Bryan Kohberger, it appears likely that someone currently or formerly associated with law enforcement or the prosecution team violated this court's non-dissemination order. Such violations not only undermine the rule of law potentially by persons charged with upholding it, but also significantly impede the ability to seat an impartial jury and will likely substantially increase the cost borne by the taxpayers of Latah County to prosecute this case by extending the time it will take to seat a jury and potentially requiring a lengthy period of juror sequestration. Accordingly, the court finds it imperative to attempt to see that the source of such leak is identified and held to account. And that doing so is the best deterrent to future violations. Accordingly, the court finds it appropriate to exercise its discretion by entering this order. So immediately upon reading that, I fell deeply, deeply in love with Judge Hippler. I'm like, this guy don't fucking play. Like he does not play.
Podcast language.
What? You made it worse when you did that.
He's gonna have to throw a bleep in there.
All right. So what is the judge order?
Okay, so it
also wasn't aware of the podcast language. I'm gonna have to.
No,
you're right. You're right,
man. Like I don't even know. It is hereby ordered that all persons who at any time past or present worked directly or indirectly by employment, contract, consultation, or otherwise for or on behalf of any law enforcement or prosecution agency engaged in the investigation or prosecution of persons for the murders that are subject of the instant case are hereby prohibited from deleting, discarding, overwriting, destroying, altering, or otherwise making unavailable any, whether electronic or in material form, records, files, documents, metadata, messages, emails, text messages, direct or private messages, phone logs, or logs of communications, regardless of whether made or kept on a work-owned or personal account, device, or messaging app, that in any way relate to or document the fact or substance of communications with third persons, including representatives of the media or other persons or entities outside of law enforcement, which communications in any way relate to, refer to, or concern the investigation of Bryan Kohberger. The facts or allegations uncovered or reported to law enforcement concerning Bryan Kohberger or the investigation into the homicides that are the subject of the current or then potential criminal prosecution of Bryan Kohberger, collectively documents or singularly document. All such orders, all such documents or materials or records that could potentially constitute a document, even if it is uncertain whether such meet that criteria, shall be preserved and must be protected from deletion, alteration, or loss until further order of the court. Any feature on any device or account that is set to automatically delete or overwrite information that could be covered by this order must immediately be disabled. So it's further ordered that within 7 days, he had it as 14, and he's crazy. He's like, I want it faster.
What a week.
Yeah. The state shall submit in court, in camera, which means in chambers, a list of all the individuals with law enforcement and prosecuting agencies, past or present, who are known to have had access to any facts related to the investigation of the defendant, including but not limited to surveillance videos of suspect vehicle 1, the AT&T records for the defendant's cell phone, and the content of the defendant's cell phone and other electronic devices and social media accounts, including internet search history, photographs, information associated with the defendant's Amazon account, or any information referenced in the above mentioned Dateline episode regarding this case. The state is further required to provide a copy of this order to all such individuals and document that it has done so. Failure to comply with this order may be a basis for a finding of contempt of court and such other civil and criminal consequences as may be appropriate, which is a conversation I want to get into with y'all. Within 7 days, the state must also provide to the court a written plan designed to address and prevent the future unauthorized disclosure of information related to this case and what it has done or proposes to do to identify any violations of the court's non-dissemination orders previously entered in this case and those responsible for such violations. So that gets a rousing round of applause from me, because
you can see, like you, I mean, you can see why he's so pissed. Like,
well, so here's the reason one of the reasons I brought up my tweet, other than the fact that I called this shit a year ago, and Hippler is the only one who did it. Judge didn't do a damn thing about it. Like, that went by without Coffindaffer saying that stuff about the weapon and all that shit on there.
Yeah.
Crickets.
Dude, yeah, the first Dateline didn't. It probably got mentioned by the defense, but yeah, he didn't do anything. Yeah,
an email go to the judge's clerk about, by the way, one of the individuals who was leaked this information is.
Yeah. Well, so here's what I love about this is that Hippler took the X factor. He took the most difficult source to try to get the information from out of the equation by not hauling Dateline in, because Dateline would have they would have used that to say, oh, well, we're not giving up our source. We're dying. We're going to lay on the sword. We're the media. We don't have to give up, and throw us in jail. We don't give a shit. We're not giving it up. He avoided that, completely went around them and went right to the project. I mean, he called out the prosecution and law enforcement and he put it on them. It is completely, they have to rat on whoever the hell gave this information up.
Yeah,
there is going to be, he is not going to be satisfied with, we couldn't find him.
Right.
We couldn't find him. That ain't going to work here. So I thought it was a brilliant move by him because, that would have just, built Dateline's brand even more, and they're, flying their First Amendment flag, we don't have to give up our source and all that shit, which I'm all about. But at the same time, I'm more about in the context of what we're looking at right now, this dude getting a fair trial.
Yeah.
You have people in a gag case puking out shit that should not be puked out. I've got a real problem with it. So,
and one of our members, because again, we're doing this live, Bluebird 711 says Dateline is no big deal concerning this trial. I filed that case since day 3. I still haven't watched the Dateline. 2 Datelines pre-Daybell didn't affect the jury. Just another tactic to delay and remove the death penalty, in my opinion. Now, I do think this is very serious, but I want to touch on one of the comments she made, in that she thinks that this is a tactic to get the death penalty removed. And I do think that is an actual possible remedy for this type of extreme violation. If the judge finds that the jury pool was so poisoned or tainted, he very well could remove the death penalty as a possible remedy.
I agree completely. I mean, and we know Idaho does it. They did it with Lori. And that was based on a couple of things. That was based on them being super slow on turning things over in terms of discovery. And that was the primary reason. But they took the death penalty off the table. And
I'm not saying that he will by any stretch of the imagination.
I think that is 100% in play.
I kind of feel like that could happen too now.
Yeah, no, I think
he's so mad. And
well, I mean, but
that's
a remedy. That's like an actual remedy. If he finds it was so violative of his 6th Amendment right and 14th Amendment right to a fair trial, I mean, that is a very, very good remedy to apply to it. You know what I mean? Because that's what I'm saying. And the reasons that I disagree with Lisa are twofold. One, this isn't a normal case, Lisa. Like, death penalty cases are not normal cases. And if we go through, I don't know if you've taken the time to read the motion that was filed by Ann Taylor, but you should. I think it'll give you a better understanding, because I'm not going to read through the whole thing. It's 40 pages tonight. We're going to go through it, but the first 30 pages explain to you and everybody out there really just exactly how different a death penalty case is for a defense attorney to try than any other type of case. It is held to the highest standards, because if you have the government trying to kill an American citizen, and that's what it is, they are going to put everybody's feet to the fire, and it starts with the defense team. They have to, and I'll pull it up, because it's going to give you a little more clarity, like seeing things like delays and tactics. I don't like that when you're talking about a death penalty case. Like, it takes as long as it takes. I mean, cases in general, like just your run-of-the-mill homicide case, is typically going to take anywhere from 1.5 years to 2 years to get to trial, because I think that you guys, now that we get to watch pretrial motion work much more frequently, we never watched that in the past. It was never something that court TV or Law and Crime would show, even as close as to 5 years ago. Like it just wasn't something that, and I would always be telling people, I'm like, that's where the real war is waged in these cases. That's where they determine what is going to be admissible in evidence and what's not. I mean, like, that's where the whole real fight is. So now that we're all seeing these things, I'm hoping that people are getting a better understanding that, you know, it's not just somebody writing a piece of paper and going into court and arguing. Everything has to be investigated from the defense side of it. Everything has to be vetted by the defense. They have to determine whether or not there's issues, and whether or not there's issues that have to be raised by motion in order to preserve issues for appeal and or to suppress evidence. You know, so I mean, there's just a lot of work that has to be done. And I think that other people that aren't practicing kind of tend to forget these judges have full dockets. Like, the judge doesn't have one case.
Yeah, that's
Judge
true.
Hippler has a full docket of cases ranging from minor felonies to major felonies, and he's got hundreds and hundreds of them. If you're talking about Cook County, these judges will have 1,000 cases on their docket. Every single day in that courtroom, it is filled with defendants. They're going through, you know, your typical status calls where they're just seeing where the sides are on discovery, if there's any motions, if setting motion dates, filing dates, you know, I mean, so like all of that takes time, you know, and like typically you'll see a 30-day date, sometimes 40, but it's typically a 30-day date to bring the parties back in to find out where they're at. Because the judge isn't getting daily updates. Hey, you know, we just sent some doc. No, it's not how it works. They go in one day. They're like, all right, where are you at? You know, and if there's issues, and we've seen in Kohberger from the beginning, there's been a lot of discovery issues in this case. Like, Ann Taylor has been bitching and complaining, rightfully so, about the turnover of discovery in this case. I am a big Ann Taylor fan, by the way, as well. She's
awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. And if like anybody, like you don't understand the job if you think those are tactics. That's called representing your client in a death penalty case. Not a tactic. It's her job, quite literally. So, and I'm not yelling at you, Lisa. I get sensitive. I mean, death penalties.
So what the fuck are you doing?
She's like, why are you yelling at me? Yeah. So I think that I just love that court order by Hippler. I think they got exactly the judge they need on there. Like, there was a lot of talk, you know, and I think that we had talked about this, Allie, with Andrea, that, you know, if you're Ann Taylor, you almost kind of wanted to stick with Judge because he wasn't Hippler. He wasn't Hippler.
I've been saying that since they made as soon as they got in there with Hippler, she had to have been like, fuck.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, we have made a mistake.
Yeah.
Judge was chill ultimately. Like, he was very like, just, I mean, he did his job, but man, he was just like, Hippler is, like you said, he's more like an appellate judge, to use your words, but like, he's just on top. Like, he'll break them in the middle of like what they're doing. He wants answers. You know, he's got a question, and I dig that. Like, it keeps me also alert and interested while he's breaking it down.
All right, I'm gonna follow you guys. I've got to run and go help run our daughter somewhere, but I'm gonna listen and then I'll be back.
Okay. All right. So you want to pull up this motion, start looking at it? Yeah. Lisa,
I was looking at this earlier.
Wrapped attention to this. Saying you're not impressed by Ann Taylor is crazy. Like, you're just like, that's like, she's filing. There are certain, well, I'm just going to read the motion, because what she includes in it is a lot of stuff from the American Bar Association, which is going to outline for you guys just exactly the amount of work that needs to be done in a death penalty case by the defense team. It's a very different type of case than a case that doesn't have the death penalty attached to it. So this was filed by Ann Taylor, I believe, on Wednesday, and it's a motion to continue. And look, you know, and I've had a couple of people hit me up. They're like, Bob, well, you know, what about the victims' families? It's like, well, like why are we torturing them and having them have to wait all this time before there's a trial? And, you know, I mean, the only answer to that is it's the process. You know, it's not like the wheels of justice turn slowly. That is a fact. It has always been that way. And It's much speedier than it used to be. Try to imagine a world like when my dad practiced, wherein they didn't have email, where they didn't have even fax machines. Like everything that was getting mailed was a week. He's like, as soon as I mailed out a document, I know I had a week before they got it. So
that is crazy,
dude. It's night and day. It's like in the blink of an eye with the advent of the fax machine, the practice of law became a rushed endeavor. So, you know, when you're dealing with people's freedom and life in terms of the defendant, and I always say this, and I never say it with any kind of disrespect to the victims and their families. However, this part of that process in the search for justice is all about the defendant. And this harkens back to what I was saying earlier. We need to get it right. If you truly care about the victims and their families, you want to make sure that they get this thing right the first time, because this thing's going to trial. If there's the death penalty is on the table, there is zero incentive for Bryan Kohberger to plead out. Zero incentive. They're like, death penalty case, you just go to trial. I'm going to take my shot at it. We'll take my shot, and then, you know, you'll try to mitigate it, damages, you know, in terms of mitigation, in terms of the sentencing. But, you know, there's just really no downside. Like usually that's the carrot. Like a lot of times in these cases, and the prosecutors will, of course, go to the victims' families and say, look, you know, I mean, we could sit through 3, 4, 5 years of you guys being tortured in order to bring this to trial, because you want him to be, you know, under the spotlight and have the day in court for your, you know, your family member, and you want him to be the offender to be put to task, and you want to hear what the evidence is, and you can do all that. Or I can offer him a plea deal, life without the possibility of parole, and then this part of this is over, and then you can focus on healing as much as you can from that kind of loss. So, I mean, but typically in a death penalty case, there's no downside in going to trial, you know, because I mean, the worst possible thing that can happen is exactly what can happen. Yeah, I'll bring Lana.
Be killed.
I'm just going to tell you right now, I'm going to give Lana a lot. Like Lana, God bless her. I mean, she digs in harder than anybody I know, except for maybe Sleuthy, in terms of like really digging into a singular case. And she's passionate as shit. I love all the things about Lana.
What I really like about you though is that you can, you know, well, it's the legal aspect, and you're actually a defense attorney, and you're looking at this from the proper channel, but also you can also say, hey, I still think this could be the guy. It's so hard for anybody else to have that opinion. And it's so hard for anybody to have both opinions or be able to explore both opinions and ask questions, even if they aren't fully on that side, you know, dance between it to try to figure, because we don't know at the end of the day. And that's the one thing that really kills me about a lot of the creators. And I do preach about it often on X, but you've already got this confirmation bias. And there's a lot of people that are inside of the communities, say if you're on a hardcore, whatever, any creator community, they don't like to dance. They don't like to say, what if, maybe.
Yeah.
You know, it's one way. It's that you're on my team, or it's, you know, you can get the fuck out. I hate that.
So innocence investigation.
I love the way you look at it.
Yeah, I appreciate that, man. Like, look, dude, like I'm a straight shooter. It's like, however I feel on something, I never bend to anybody's will because I don't give a shit.
You have not.
They have their own opinions.
Yeah, I'm not, dude.
You know, it's like I could have easily sat on the fence on Richard Allen and not taken the shit that I took for 2 years.
Oh,
so,
dude.
you know, when I come out and I take a position on a case, you got to know that I mean it. It's not for grifting. It's not for clicks and all this. It's because I actually think that. Period. End of conversation. So, but I want to follow up with innocence investigation. We need someone who has the opposite perspective of Bob. Now, innocence, I'm going to put you to the test. What do you think my perspective is? I'm curious. I want to see both sides of the coin. I'd like to see you in chat. Let me know what you think my perspective is, and I'll tell you if it's the correct. If it's the correct.
See, and that's the danger too. Actually, that's a prime example of what I'm talking about. If I post a more pro Kohberger thing, which I actually do all the time, somebody will come in the comments and they'll be like, well, I thought you were sitting on this side. I'm like, maybe. I'm exploring other options. I'm exploring it openly, publicly, and that is a dangerous game with today's content creation.
Yeah, I mean, here's my problem, and I'll 100 like I've told Lana I'm going to have her on, and I'll be up for the debate. Here's where the issue is going to be, is that she's looking at things that aren't in evidence, and aren't.
She goes down the conspiracy factor, dude.
Right? She's more like she's going to be trying to point at things, because I've watched a lot of her videos. Like I said, she's incredibly thorough. It's super, super intense in terms, and she's super, super into what she's digging into, and I
can't take that away from her.
I love her passion. No, I love her passion, but in terms of like, you're not going to convince me of anything based on things that we don't know or do know are in evidence. So, you know what I mean? Like I can't go on things that people have dug up, not knowing whether or not they're in evidence, because
the weird neighbor is not going to be in evidence. Like the weird neighbor possibly being the murderer is not going to be talked about. That's not going to be the third culprit that Ann Taylor's currently like. It's going to be stuff like that. It's going to be, the drug dealer theory. I remember the drug dealer theory was hardcore when I was really into it. There's a lot of different branches to the Kohberger tree that you can go down, but I know that she really explores the conspiracy side of it.
Oh, big time. And
I mean, more power to her, but
yeah, no, I look, as a defense attorney, I love to see people out there doing that. You know what I mean? It's like, I think it's throwing people off, because like, again, I'm going to say this one more time, and I hope that it resonates with people. I don't give a shit what my opinion is right now, because the only time my opinion on whether there's innocence or guilt as to a defendant is after a trial, period. All I'm telling you is this is my initial instinct. This is what, based on the very limited amount of evidence that I've heard that they have without having it been vetted at trial yet, I think it leans guilty. They've got that fucking sheath. You people are being delirious if you don't think that sheath to a jury is incredibly powerful. Think about the world that we live in. Think about the shit that people watch on TV. Please don't start the transfer or touch DNA shit. Please don't do that.
Dude, I know. I try to get into that aspect
right now. I'm just I understand that
you have to look at the jury as well. Like you're exactly right, dude. Like the perspective of a jury is huge. And dude, physical evidence like that sheath is going to be, that's something they're going to be able to see, something that they're going to be able to hear was found underneath a murder victim. That's fucking massive. No matter how you look at it.
In terms of a jury of 12 citizens, you can either trust the fact that I've tried cases for a long time or not. I don't really care. I'm just telling you that is incredibly powerful. If Allie and I were defending Bryan Kohberger, the number one piece of evidence that we would be trying to do everything in our power to make go away, it would be that sheath, because it's that powerful. The argument of that it was planted is not going to go anywhere. I'm telling you that. I don't even know that they'll be able to raise that, because they don't have any nexus to somebody planted. Who would have planted it? Who's setting up Bryan Kohberger? You can't just say shit like, oh, it was planted. Like the cops just decided to pick on this guy and plant that sheath. I mean, the sheath is a real problem for Ann Taylor and Bryan Kohberger in that case. I'm just telling you. You'll see it play out at trial, and you can go back to this live. This isn't a sides thing. You know what I'm saying? No one should be so convinced in his innocence because you haven't seen the evidence either.
Dude, oh, yeah.
That's
really my main thing. I'm like, how can anybody be on one side? So, I have an opinion, sure, but dude, I'm not ride or die with he's a guilty person. You know what I mean? I don't know how anybody could just be that hardcore on either side of it. I really can't.
Let me ask you this. And I'm going through some of the I love the chat. I love both sides of this. This is exactly
this chat's actually killer. You got a bunch of different opinions in here.
I love this chat.
This is really good.
It's the last thing I ever want is an echo chamber, ever.
This rules, man.
I love hearing both sides. I would love so much, and I'm definitely gonna have Lana on to have the debate, but I'm going to give her some ground rules. She's got to stick to shit that's actually evidence, not theories. Like, that's where it is. She's got to try to convince me based on what limited evidence we know why she's innocent.
I'm gonna be watching that one, dude.
It can't be shit she's coming in whole cloth. You know what I mean? Because I don't give a shit about predispositions. He's a weird guy. He's got crazy eyes. I don't give a shit about any of that. What my main problem with that case from the defense side of it is that sheath. I'm just trying to tell you that a jury is going to find that to be incredibly powerful, because I can disagree with a jury on a case all day. And I do, I'll watch a trial. We'll cover a trial. A lot of times in those self-defense cases, which I think are fascinating, whether somebody is legally responsible or were they within their rights to defend themselves. And it's a judgment call in those cases. It's not a whodunit, and I love those cases. And a lot of times, like the Apple River guy, the guy who stabbed all the kids.
I remember that one. Oh, that was crazy.
That was a crazy case. And it was so interesting. Like, I was
people were fired up, dude.
Oh, dude, like the Cameron was fired up. It was like there was a generational gap in that case where, like, I'm able to relate to this 40, 50-year-old guy standing in the river, like, surrounded by screaming teenagers who were calling him a fucking pedophile. I'm like, all right, I can see him being threatened pretty heavily.
Same. I was watching that, like, I think I'm on that guy's side. Like,
and Cameron's
getting heat for that.
She's like, he was a creep. You know what I mean? So it's like, it was like we were just having this, like, spirited debate, which I love the spirited debate. I mean, like, Allison and I argue for a living. So, like, I never take offense if somebody has the opposite, but, just keep it civil. We can really try. Oh, wait, here. So no, the real killers planted there's killers now.
We're going into the drug theory, dude.
Fired, he traded it. No way this is a single person crime. So I disagree. I think if the girls were asleep up there, but again, we're going to find all this out. Like, all that's been speculation in terms of who may or may not have fought back. We've heard Steve talk about his daughter, that Kaylee fought back. But we're going to see, sadly, when we're going through the autopsies, what, they're going to try to put together how this thing went down, because the timing is very tight. It's a very tight window for 4 people. No question. Knife, like ending somebody's life with a knife is a very exhausting activity. Like, 4 victims, and if he had to fight any of them, it's one thing if they're all asleep and he's just, and he's not getting any resistance, that's different, right? If he's having to fight and they're fighting back, it becomes a whole different endeavor.
Yeah, he would have been tired as fuck leaving that residence.
Because my whole thing, when first flush, I was like, it leans guilty, and then when I was reading it, if you listen to our podcast, the second time, I was very hard on Dylan Mortensen, because I did not know.
It's hard not to be. I mean,
everything they said about that in the PCA made no sense to me. I'm like, what is this frozen shock phase bullshit? What does that mean? I'm like, she wasn't asleep. Like, she didn't go to sleep. So when all that came out in the filings, and now we know she was up for a long time and scared as hell, and then she's got Bethany telling her to come down to her room and run and all this other shit. I mean, is it weird that she didn't, like, she claims that she saw Xana laying in the hallway and they didn't check? She didn't. I don't know. I'm not an 18, 19-year-old college.
I know, dude. It's hard to put yourself in that position on that night. Again, she's young as hell. Yeah, dude. There's so much going on.
Like, but yeah, like her whole story, like, it is going to be a major problem for the defense. I'm sorry, for the state to deal with the issues of the contaminated crime scene, because we know for a fact there were kids up in that place just jacking up the crime scene. And believe me, Ann Taylor's going to raise it. She's absolutely going to raise it. And it's going to become an issue. So I don't know. It's a incredibly sad case, but it's also it's going to be a fascinating case. It's going to be like people were so far removed from it. I think people are like really, really kind of forgetting about it, especially like all of us that are like entrenched in Karen Reed's case. And, you know, it's like when that thing starts up, man, like the whole world's going to be watching that thing again. It's like my in-laws who couldn't give a shit about true crime knew about that case. Everybody knew about that case.
Everybody does
something about it. You know, they weren't digging in like us true crime nerds were, but they were certainly digging into it. So, all right, let me pull this thing up. So what I like to do just in terms of the table of contents. So she basically files, she says, in making this motion, Mr. Kohberger relies on his right to be free from cruel and unusual punishment, his right to due process, his right to a fair trial, his right to counsel, his right to present a defense, his right to confront witnesses, his right to a fair and reliable sentencing determination, and other rights safeguarded by the 5th, 6th, 8th, and 14th Amendments to the United States Constitution, as well as the Idaho Constitution. So she's got the table of contents where she breaks down her arguments. And like some of them, we're going to skim through them, but just to give you an idea what they are. So, and like she's starting not with the Dateline. Dateline is the last thing.
Yeah. It's like number 5 or something.
Yeah. I mean, like Milo's mom, that's my favorite comment. Like everyone should be waiting. Like it's okay to have an initial opinion. Like, it seems like they might have the right guy, or I think they have the wrong guy. But like,
yeah, that's just human nature. Like that's just everyone's gonna have a knee-jerk reaction about
anyone who's dug in, screaming about somebody being innocent or guilty prior to trial. I'm here to tell you that ain't it. You don't know shit. You honestly don't know shit. You don't even at this point know all the evidence that they have. You don't still at this point know what's going to be admitted and what's not going to be admitted. You know, you would think that people that watch all these trials would start to figure out that the only thing that we know about evidence is stuff that comes out in pleadings, especially in a case that's gagged. Like, so, you know, and it's got to be vetted. Like, I don't care what the cops are telling me as a defense when I get discovery. I'm like, all right, well, they're saying, well, they got this, this, and this. Well, we have to vet it. I'm going to send it to my experts. We're going to send it, you know, to our own labs. We're going to like do our own extraction. We're going to look at everything ourselves because I don't believe cops typically. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like it's part of it's my job. We have to investigate. If they've locked in on somebody with tunnel vision and to the exclusion of everybody else, well, we spend an awful lot of time looking at everybody else. You know, so that's one of those things where, you know, that's part of our job. It's absolutely our ethical duty to our client to investigate. So the first thing, table of contents, this court has an obligation to uphold Mr. Kohberger's constitutional rights by vacating the trial date because defense counsel needs additional time to review discovery and prepare for the complex merits and sentencing phases unique to death penalty cases. So that's her first thing that she argues. All right. And the second one is Mr. Kohberger has myriad constitutional rights during these proceedings, all of which are dependent on counsel having the time and resources to prepare for a capital trial in accordance with established professional norms. And then she's got 3 subsections in there. A, in capital cases, the right to effective assistance of counsel and a complete defense are amplified. So I'm trying to tell you guys, when you get to a death penalty case, it's not like everything is jacked up to the highest level because the government's trying to kill somebody. B, Mr. Kohberger is also entitled to an individualized sentencing determination and a constitutional right that is uniquely reserved for defendants facing the death penalty. And then C, the right to a qualified expert assistance, as part of the guarantees to effective assistance of counsel and individualized sentencing proceeding. And then 3, counsel's professional and ethical obligations in a capital case. And then she's got some subsections there. She's got the duty to provide effective assistance of counsel. The minimum requirements counsel must meet in investigating for the merits phase of the capital case. And that's sentencing. So if he's found guilty, the sentencing is like a whole nother trial, you know, where they have to, on a death penalty case, they have to bring in all kinds of stuff, unless you're like Daybell's lawyer who did nothing. like, that was the most bizarre thing I'd ever seen. Like,
I didn't keep up with that one. What did he literally didn't have he wasn't
not much. It was super brief, dude. It was crazy to me. Like it was so crazy that I wouldn't be surprised if that thing it's definitely going to be challenged. But when she gets into like this part C here, the council must conduct an exhaustive, unparalleled life history investigation, analyze hundreds of documents and interviews, and compile all of this information in a cohesive narrative for sentencing phase. So she's got to go back into Bryan Kohberger since he's a baby and literally write his biography. It's crazy. It's like the amount of work that they have to do in a death penalty case is just different, y'all. And
I just think with all of that stuff that a lot of that she should be in too deep. What resonates more to me is some of the later stuff that you're going to get. I mean,
you say that, babe, but we tried a pretty heavy duty quadruple victim case.
No, I agree.
How much time do you that was not a DP case. I mean, how much extra time do you think that we would have had to do all that? You know what I mean? Oh, there she goes.
No, I'm here. I just had to turn off my camera. So no, of course, but I'm just saying there. To me, I felt like, you know what, this seems like it should be a pretty open and shut motion. She needs more time. She needs to conduct further investigation, and then I see 40 pages and I'm thinking, wow, she must really be scared that the judge might not grant this motion. And I'm looking.
The lady doth protest too much.
No, just that she felt like she had to put in so much to make what to me seems like, well, it's a death penalty case. She's got additional investigation she needs to do, or she needs a continuance. But a lot of the first 30 pages doesn't have any facts, such as, because I've uncovered this in my initial background of his family background, his life history, to the extent of what part of the life history has been done and why is there more that's needed because of how the investigation's gone so far. There's sort of none of that. But I don't know that you read through the very last of the table of contents, because I think that since we're not reading this entire thing, that's going to give everybody the overall gist.
Wait, what do you mean the very last of it?
I don't know if you got through the whole table of contents. It looked like you had moved on.
I did not. So under part 3, which was the professional and ethical obligations, there's C, which is that exhaustive, unparalleled life history investigation. And then she goes through what that entails.
I'll be right back.
The alleged aggravating circumstances of the crime heightens counsel's obligation to conduct a full and complete investigation and prepare a presentation.
So that's the first place that Ann Taylor puts anything that's remotely specific to this case. Up until then, with all the other sections, it's just basically, this is what needs to be done in a death penalty case, and it's like almost copy and paste out of a lawyer guidebook on this is what must be done in a death penalty case, and this is why it's so important to do all of these things. But when you get to D, she's talking about specifically that just because this case is as heinous as it is, with 4 college students being slaughtered in the manner that they were, that it is not a foregone conclusion that a jury is going to find it warrants the death penalty. And because of that, she argues, she has a heightened obligation here. and she cites some other cases, and I think that'll be one of the specifics that we get into. I'll let you continue through the table of contents for the general outline.
Yeah, and then there's the life history investigation is ongoing and requires additional time and expert assistance. A continuance is necessary to remedy the prejudice of highly inflammatory publicity released just weeks before the current trial date.
No, I think you missed a couple.
No, I didn't.
You were at D.
What do you mean?
The alleged crime, and then E.
Yeah, like you just want to read these instead of reading the motion.
We're not reading. We are not reading the body of this motion.
I mean, there were certain things like I was going to kind of skip through, like breeze through some of the stuff that the ABA says, just so people have an idea, like an educated idea of what defense attorneys have to do in a death penalty case. I get the feeling that a lot of people don't understand that from reading. And I'm curious, Maria, what do you mean? Bob, defense got the same order, so what?
Maybe just
I'm trying to figure out, are you talking about Hippler's order? Yeah, but here's the difference.
He doesn't accuse the defense.
Hippler didn't accuse the defense of leaking anything. The defense doesn't have to save jack shit from their phones. It's only law enforcement and the prosecution. So that's where Hippler's head's at. He's pretty like, there's no benefit to the defense leaking this. It's like that same ridiculous thing that people were saying on the other side, the guilters on the Richard Allen case. Oh, the defense purposefully leaked the crime scene photo. I'm like, what? That's the last thing defense attorneys ever want to do, is have crime scene photos like that leaked out to the public. That all but assures your client's going to be found guilty. So that's rejected completely. All right. So, okay, then I guess I'll read through these. So counsel cannot identify all necessary experts without completing a comprehensive life history investigation. Counsel requires additional time to fulfill the minimum requirements described above. Counsel cannot review all of the relevant discovery and complete the necessary investigations prior to trial. The life history investigation is ongoing and requires additional time to expert.
So those two things are specific to this case.
And then 5, a continuance is necessary to remedy the prejudice of the highly inflammatory publicity released just weeks before the current trial date, including the recent Dateline special and a forthcoming book by James Patterson.
Yeah, they talk about this book coming out too. 16 days, before what would have been trial.
Right before the trial, where he is also claiming to have insider details that no one else.
I read that.
Yeah.
So who the hell is getting this? I mean, is the leaker getting paid? Like, are they getting rich off this?
I mean, I don't know why somebody would risk their career.
That's insanity, dude. Yeah, like that's what I'm having trouble with.
If it's a prosecutor, they're done. If it's a prosecutor that leaked this shit, they're done practicing.
Yeah,
money on it. They will be disbarred. Like in this case.
Well, something you brought up earlier. Remember the first time Judge was the judge when the first Dateline came out, nothing was really done. Maybe they were thinking going into this one, hell, nothing happened the first time. Somebody's like, fuck it, I'm going to leak out a bunch of insane stuff.
I mean, like the motive for a prosecution leaking information is clear. They want to poison the jury pool. You know, they want this shit getting out. They want all of that was in that Dateline episode, which you saw and you found compelling, right, Steve?
I did, absolutely.
Because of all that shit they had. That would be the motive for the prosecution to leak something like that, because you're trying to taint the jury pool, right? And the other side of it, the flip side of it, is that if it's the cops, I don't know what it is. It's either money or promotion. You know, I mean, it's like in the Garcia case, all these cops were given like civic awards before Garcia was even convicted. Like they're pinning medals on these cops. I'm like, whoa, serious? Yeah, it was crazy, dude. It was absolutely crazy. So the continuance reversal is more likely than not in any case resulting in a death sentence. And then continuance is reasonable and necessary under the circumstances. So then she really just gets into the details of it. Go ahead, babe.
So I just going to leave my camera off for a second, but I think for this we can just say,
like in the beginning, she's just giving the like kind of the overarching propositions of a death penalty case, and that there's Supreme Court cases talking about you can't rush these to trial,
right?
Like, you know, I mean that's the first 5 pages are all about that. You know, she cites some cases, which is all true. You know, and then she starts digging into the effective assistance of counsel, that she has to be prepared. And all of us that follow this case know there is a massive amount of discovery. I mean, she's flat out said in open court, she'll never be able to, like,
we'll get to that because we're going to read the case specific stuff.
Well, but I was saying what she's already said in court.
And she puts that in, she puts that in there about. Well, we're about to get to it.
I don't, are we? I didn't read that she said it. She said in open court that she was never going to be able to get to everything. And she was going to try the case. I mean, she said that flat out in a hearing, that there's no way that she's going to be able to look at every single document and her whole team, So did she
again,
say
she spends the first part of this just going through generally, what you've got to do in a death penalty case and just all the things they have to do. A lot of it focused on the sentence investigation, the life history investigation, and you've got to prepare for sentencing at the same time that you prepare for trial. She actually has a footnote that says, this is not me saying I think he's going to be found guilty. I still have to do the work. So if you go to page 22, babe, this is D, where she gives something. It's at least,
you're skipping all the obligations that I really wanted people to have a better understanding of what everything that has to be done.
All right. Well,
according to the American Bar Association, even if I'm just reading the bold shit. So every task ordinarily performed in the representation of a criminal defendant is more difficult and time consuming when the defendant is facing execution. All right. And that counsel must thoroughly investigate and challenge every minute piece of evidence the state purports to have. These are all heightened things that have to be done in a death penalty case. The defense lawyer's obligation includes not only finding, interviewing, and scrutinizing the backgrounds of potential prosecution witnesses, but also searching for any other potential witnesses who might challenge the prosecution's version of events, and subjecting all forensic evidence to rigorous independent scrutiny. All right. So in typical cases, because remember, Ann Taylor has been appointed. So this defense is on the state's dime. So when she needs experts, and they give death penalty cases way more money in terms of the defense to challenge it. So the things that she's talking about, it's not an issue of funds for her, because the state, as I said, is footing the bill. All right. So where do you want me to go? 20?
No, go ahead. And did you finish the list?
I mean, that was kind of just the broad sweeping, without reading it all. It's but this is all about the exhaustive, independent investigation of his character, his history, his record, and any circumstances of the offense. And, this is where they talk about, they're looking for two things. They're looking for both, because for sentencing and mitigation, red flags that were out there that had been noticed by people and that kind of went ignored, that may have signaled that maybe this person has some kind of mental illness or mental defect going on, and probably should have been addressed maybe by parents or, somebody that was in the know in terms of having that kind of information about the person. You're allowed to bring that in mitigation if he's found guilty. So they have to collect and analyze records from the client and the client's family's life history, interviewing individuals who have touched the client's life or who may be able to shed light on circumstances shaping the client's life. In a typical case, you're not doing this stuff. You're not digging into the life history of the defendant like this. It's well established that life history records must be collected, include and are not limited to all records that may be in existence and which bear on any of the following subjects: medical history, complete prenatal, pediatric, and adult health information, exposure to harmful substances in utero and in the environment, substance abuse history, mental health history, history of maltreatment and neglect, trauma history, educational history, employment and training history, military experience, multi-generational family history, genetic disorders and vulnerabilities, as well as multi-generational patterns of behavior, prior adult and juvenile correctional experience, religious, gender, sexual orientation, ethnic, racial, cultural, and community influences, and then socioeconomic, historical, and political factors. So when she's saying it's a comprehensive thing, it's a comprehensive thing.
Right.
And that's not coming up in the trial. We've seen her raise it as to
getting rid of the death penalty.
Right. Trying to get rid of the death penalty. She's been fighting, trying to get rid of the death penalty because he's on the spectrum. So, all right. And
so
then
go down to the top of page 23. So, and this is under the subtitle, "The alleged aggravating circumstances of this crime heightened counsel's obligations to conduct a full and complete investigation and prepare a presentation that can withstand adversarial testing." So she says there are many examples of capital cases in which the presentation of a comprehensive life history and mitigating circumstances overcame aggravating crimes, including cases with multiple victims. Indeed, juries have rejected the death penalty in at least 400 cases involving multiple crimes, demonstrating that the outcome of this case, even in the event of a conviction, is anything but a foregone conclusion. She goes on to list the citation for where she gets these 400 cases, and she gives a couple examples. The first is, for example, Ricky Abetta killed a police officer, a sheriff's deputy, his girlfriend, along with her 18-year-old daughter and adult sitter, another teenager, and a 6-month-old baby in a small New Mexico town of 2,500 residents. A jury sentenced him to life after deliberating for 11 days. He says Jason Burkhart and a co-defendant killed 3 people, including a 16 and 18-year-old, in 2 separate episodes. A Texas jury sentenced him to life. Andre Cooper was a gang leader convicted of killing 4 people, including eliminating a witness against him. A Pennsylvania jury rejected the death penalty.
It'd be interesting if she gave the reasoning behind why the jury decided to do that in those cases. But I mean, it had to have been something like, we're getting deep into his history, something
Right.
his upbringing, substance abuse, something along those lines. But I really want to know now in those cases that you're mentioning what happened. I'm going to try to dig into those.
What was the mitigation? Yeah, no, it does beg the question because they are.
Because that first one, he killed
pretty
half
horrific.
the fucking town. I mean, what the hell?
Right. A death sentence is not a guaranteed outcome upon conviction of an aggravated capital murder case. And in a case where the alleged allegations are sensational in nature and have been the subject of intense media and public scrutiny, a comprehensive and accurate life history presentation is more crucial to the constitutional imperative of an individualized sentencing determination to ensure the aggravated nature of the crime and the public outcry does not overcome the jury's ability to weigh both options. And I think she puts this in to tie it in later, even without so much as words, but just reasoning that the judge could come to on his own, that this is also an effect of the fact that there's been extra sensationalized information out there, things that should have never been distributed or, known to the public. So, and again, she's tying that back to her obligation to do all of the things she listed above and say here it's even more important because not only it's sensationalized, there's a lot of public scrutiny, and you just had Dateline convince Steve and the rest of the public that my man was guilty.
Absolutely. I mean, I can't deny that.
So she goes on to say that she can't identify necessary experts until she's done. But again, nothing real specific there. But she does note that there is an ex parte motion pending. And that's something that is often done because the defense, as Bob pointed out, she is court appointed. So she's got to get funds from the county. And the defense doesn't have to tell the prosecution its theory of the case. It can investigate avenues that might lead to nothing, and you do not have to tell. And it's a constitutional violation if you're obligated to tell the prosecution what theories you are investigating, what possible avenues you are going down. So this tells us she has done that ex parte, which is appropriate. It's the standard in federal court. However, in every state case, now I don't get court appointed in Illinois, but I often take on cases where my clients can't afford the full, gamut of experts that are necessary for a case. And then I go to the court and say, my client needs funds for experts. And they get those funds for experts, but what every state court has done is deny me the ability to make my record ex parte and convince them ex parte of why I need an expert. So I'm glad that that's not an issue here in Idaho, although
now,
it is.
before you go on, Travis has an interesting factoid, which I think would explain the breadth of this motion. Don't forget, Allie, Idaho has this weird Victims' Right Act that's in the Idaho Constitution. Unlike any other state, court has to give consideration to the victims' families on scheduling.
Well, Travis, I did mention earlier that I was surprised by the breadth of this motion, that clearly Ann Taylor is concerned that it might not get granted, hence why it is so thick and lengthy and citing the law. And so that would be an explanation as to why. There are victim rights acts in Illinois as well. And I am unfamiliar with what might be some of the more unusual terms or different terms that are in Idaho that make it harder to get a continuance. But clearly, this motion that we are going over was drafted by a lawyer who does not think it's a foregone conclusion that she can get a continuance on this case. That is clear, because otherwise you do not go through 40 pages to ask for something that you are fairly certain is constitutionally required that be given to your client. So I appreciate the comment, Travis, and that can explain why she is so nervous in this case. Plus, it does appear, as we're going to see in some of the later sections that are more fact specific to this case, that some of her requests have been denied, but it wasn't for a continuance. But it'll also circle back into Bluebird's earlier comment. All
right. So I'm just going to wrap this up because she summarizes it pretty nice. Thus, capital defense teams have a complex and time-consuming job in identifying and interviewing life history witnesses, collecting numerous life history records from the client and his family, and then analyzing and contextualizing all of the information into a cohesive narrative for the jury, should the case proceed to a sentencing phase. As discussed in the following section, it is only after the mitigation investigation nears completion that counsel can identify all of the behavioral, cultural, scientific, and mental health experts that may be necessary to develop mitigation presentation and allow for individualized sentencing as required by the U.S. Constitution.
Right. So then I was going to just jump to the next section where she's fact specific. And in section 5A, she says counsel cannot review all the relevant discovery and complete the necessary investigation prior to trial. She goes on to say, as counsel explained in recent filings and in oral argument, which are hereby incorporated in full for brevity, it is impossible, and this goes back to what you were saying before, babe, for the defense team to review the necessary and relevant discovery in a manner that allows the evidence to be integrated into a comprehensive defense case to pursue all necessary investigations arising from review of discovery, including into alternate perpetrators, and to address the myriad of issues that continues to arise from the state's failure to fully abide by this court's discovery and expert disclosure deadlines. Counsel requested that the court alleviate these problems by precluding the death penalty as a possibility, freeing up counsel's time to focus on the merits phase preparation and removing the heightened standard of reliability that governs death penalty proceedings. Because this court denied that motion, counsel is obligated to seek a continuance to continue reviewing discovery and complete investigations relating to the merits phase. Now, in my experience, those words alone, I have not been able to finish it. I'm still investigating alternate perpetrators. I've got lines of investigation that are open and out there and viable. You get a continuance. And again, that circles back to maybe what Travis was pointing out about the statute in Idaho being different. After that.
Where did you end reading? Because there's some stuff I wanted to get into that I really like that she wrote.
Okay, so that was
What page?
Page 29.
Oh, good. Okay, so if you want to keep going here, like
I wasn't going to keep reading any of that. I was just going to.
Okay, so because I like it because it's giving generalizations that we're always talking about on our channel. So where she says that prosecutors are advocates of their side and they see the case through the lens of trying to secure the conviction. Thus, what may appear exculpatory to a defense attorney or lead to the discovery of exculpatory evidence through additional investigation may appear only tangentially relevant to a prosecutor. We're saying that all the time. We're looking through two completely different lenses. Given the heightened standards of due process afforded to a capitally accused defendant, it is imperative that counsel has time to review the relevant discovery and conduct any necessary follow-up. Cutting off this review before counsel can complete it would significantly prejudice Mr. Kohberger. The state's case is circumstantial. Mr. Kohberger was not identified as a person of interest until weeks after the crime. And after he was identified, law enforcement ceased investigating all other possibilities. Tunnel vision. So while counsel can explain this in trial, every experienced trial lawyer knows that trials are essentially story battles. How many times have I said that? Yep. High stakes duels where the prosecution and defense each tell competing narratives about the same set of events. Ultimately, the jury decides which story feels more true and more coherent. Even though the burden of proof rests with the prosecution and the defense bears no burden at all, humans are driven by narratives. That reality forces the defense to counteract the state's narrative with another compelling story.
Wow.
That's so true. That's so true.
Yeah, dude.
All the time over here. Like Allie lives there. Like just like in Garcia, she's like, we have to have somebody else to point the finger at. We have to. Because human nature dictates narrative.
And again, I know a lot of talking heads, a lot of legal consultants, a lot of lawyers believe the defense needs to have one story, and I'm all about all the possibilities.
Me too. It's like,
I know people think that, then that makes you sound weak. You're supposed to remind the jury, I have no burden. So I'm going to give you all the possibilities. This could mean this could mean that.
Right. Shit that you might not think of.
I'm a fan of telling
you're allowed to go back there and think of, well, what happens if this just happened?
Mm-hmm.
You know, like Karen Reed's case.
And I was about to say all the different variables in Karen Reed alone. Like, God, I'd hate to be on that jury, dude.
We saw that in
BK is going to have its own problems, but Karen Reed is just a conundrum of insanity.
Yeah, but Bob and I just did a live with one of Richard Allen's lawyers and an attorney from his office that just went to trial, and one of the jury questions were, do we need to believe? Can we not believe either of their stories? And that I'm a huge fan of telling the jury just what Bob said. If you're back there and you're saying, what if this could have happened? What if that could have happened? And again, it's got to be reasonable. So not what if an elephant flew down and, turned into a human and did something. But if you're coming up with plausible possibilities for facts, for evidence, that's reasonable doubt. I don't need to tell it to you. You can look at the same evidence and come to your own conclusions. Here's the things I've thought of as possibilities, as what the evidence suggests, but that's your job. And if you're back there asking yourself that question, if you're back there throwing out plausible alternatives, that's reasonable doubt.
And so she goes on to say, which dovetails into that, as scholars explain, quote, where the central issue is the identity or is the identity of the perpetrator. Even a reasonable doubt case implies a story that someone else did it, but it is a story with a huge hole and one likely to be ineffective. The jury might speculate that if the defendant did not do it, there should be at least some evidence suggesting that someone else did. And it is especially incumbent on counsel to become aware of all existing evidence, because alternate perpetrator evidence may be deemed inadmissible under Idaho law if it, quote, merely tends to mislead the jury that another person committed the crime. So,
but even the next paragraph, I think you should read. It's very important.
Yeah. Thus, defense counsel's review of the discovery is not merely checking a box. It goes to the very heart of the ability to prepare and present a defense, reviewing and integrating all of the evidence in order to tell the jury a coherent counter narrative is essential to defending Mr. Kohberger's life. The state and its superior investigatory apparatus has spent years honing in on one specific story, that of Mr. Kohberger's guilt, and ignoring all other possibilities. Defense counsel has a bigger job in not only reviewing their case for guilt, but figuring out what the state missed and exploring other alternative possibilities. The inability to review the discovery and incorporate all of the information into a cohesive defense prior to trial would nearly guarantee that counsel cannot mount an effective defense on Mr. Kohberger's behalf. Because his life is on the line and due process must be given its highest regard, this court should grant counsel the time necessary to ensure a fair trial. Hear, hear.
Yeah, she's done a really good job with this.
I'm just telling you, like I saw, I was like, why is she taking another? Like, she's death penalty certified. She's probably appointed. Like, she wasn't hired on Kohberger's case. She was appointed. It's Idaho. They don't have a huge amount of death penalty certified lawyers out there. If they tell her you're on the case, guess what? She's on the case.
Yeah, she don't have much choice.
Like, I mean, it's like people are. It's, and it's like I tend to get I get worked up sometimes and I forget that people that don't practice law may not necessarily, it's not intuitive, some of this stuff. But like when I try to explain it, it seems like people just aren't hearing it sometimes. Because I go through the same thing.
They're only hearing what they want to hear, right? Like,
I mean, a lot of people are.
Everyone's already made up their minds.
And I'm just
I'm going to go back to it. No one's allowing themselves any breathing room in the case at all. They're like, no, it's this.
Sides. Like YB, I'm no guilter. Like, you should know better. And I am no guilter.
And I'm just going to say,
I'm not guilter either, but I would probably be classified as a guilter on X.
But I don't give a shit what my initial instinct is or what I'm feeling now. I don't care until trial. That's the only time I'm going to reach any kind of conclusion. And even then, it's iffy.
Right. I mean,
I'll sit through an entire trial. I'll be like, man, I don't know.
I'll just say that one of our viewers made a good comment. I put it up earlier, but I can't find it now. Was that you don't always get the truth through a trial, and that's Buffett. I know that for sure.
I put it up
for sure.
It was great. Yeah.
I mean, but I just want to say, while we're on this topic, I do think that this is a crime scene that speaks to more than one perpetrator, in my opinion. On its face, 4 people slaughtered in this way in different rooms, to expect that unless everybody had been drugged, which there's no evidence of, that everybody slept through it. When you've got witnesses who said they heard whimpering, they heard a screaming, the dogs barking. To me, on its face, it does scream multiple perpetrators.
I mean, if we were trying the case, we'd definitely be arguing that. There's no question. I mean, we were trying it on Garcia and that was just 2 victims in each house.
Right. Steve, what do you think when you think of it on its face, if it appears that you would instinctively think, you know what, it was probably more than one person?
Initially when I knew
none of the facts.
Yeah, if I didn't know any of the facts, I would think that there was more than one person. And in the early days, I went down that path multiple times. Like, I was pretty convinced that there's no way one person could do this, honestly.
Yeah. It like early on, like I was so on the Dylan shit. And then, we come to find out, I can't remember which of the girls' moms was like, I'm like, look, like, it is not crazy to think that this was a party house, because we know that it was, and that somebody was slinging X or some kind of party drug, MDMA, whatever. And that shit went sideways one night, or that there was money owed, or that shit, like product went, who knows? I mean, my head's everywhere. I'm like, we're defense attorneys. I'm thinking of every single possibility. That's why I'm saying, like, if I'm telling you all early on that I think something leans guilty, that's based on what I think a jury would do, based on the information that I'm seeing not being vetted. That's not necessarily the way that I feel. You know, I mean, like we try cases. So like by nature, Alice and I are always thinking of everything that could have gone on. I mean, like like we're doing the Stephen Avery case, and like I don't trust anybody else's opinion on that. So Alice and I and we're getting back to it. I promise. I got sucked into trials, but like we're literally going through every single police report that exists, every single pleading in that case, because that's what I need to do in order to reach a decision on something. So when people are like, "Oh, I'm taking side," that ain't me. I'm not side guy. If I've come out openly and I'm not fence riding, that means that I feel adamant about that. Because I am like, no one's ever going to pigeonhole me. Oh, Bob's a defense attorney, thinks everybody's innocent. That's absurd. That's insane. That's wrong. And
they love to pigeonhole people. That's the
well, I mean, and people are going to do that, and I reject it. Like, and people are like, and no one should be pigeonholing themselves into a side before they see the evidence at trial.
Right, saying that something that the evidence that on its face, the way the prosecution presents it, seems to have legs is a far cry from saying, you know, that you've made
strap in the electric chair or whatever. I'll put them
so
in.
The next
cry from that.
She's got some facts in here in this next section B. The life history investigation is ongoing and requires additional time and expert assistance. And she starts out by explaining, as more fully discussed in the ex parte supplement to this motion. And again, the footnote there says Mr. Kohberger is entitled to maintain that the confidentiality of the defense team's ongoing investigation. That tells you why there's not a lot of facts in here, which is what, when I first read it, I was like, you know, she needs to be giving them some facts. Well, we've got this, we've got that we're still looking into. She's done it in an ex parte supplement. And as I said before, it's good that the court is allowing that, because she does not have to tell the prosecution what they're thinking, what they're investigating. But she goes on to say that counsel is reviewing and digesting significant new records that have been received in the past couple months, addressing ongoing barriers to receiving important life history records and continuing to build rapport with several key life history witnesses. As explained in the accompanying ex parte filing, the investigation to date has revealed red flags for a number of mitigating themes and issues. Counsel must fully investigate these avenues before making strategic decisions relating to sentencing. And again, only after a more thorough life history investigation will counsel know the range of experts that will be needed. So that's some specific stuff, that they're still getting records right now, that they're still having trouble getting all the records that they need. So that's another specific allegation here that supports a continuance. And then you've got 5, and that's the, I think, Dateline, right? Yes.
Dateline, yeah.
Go ahead, babe.
So the continuance is also necessary to investigate and remedy the prejudice of the highly inflammatory publicity released just weeks before the current trial date, including the recent Dateline NBC special and a forthcoming book. So it talks about how the case has substantial public interest. And then on May 9th of 2025, just weeks before this capital trial is set to begin, Dateline NBC aired a 2-hour episode about this case titled "The Terrible Night on King Road." The program includes—
That's a terrible title. That's horrible.
Worst title. It's like—
I mean, this is a lot worse than terrible.
That was a room of like producers and like, you know.
I mean, terrible is
what
like—
should we call it? What about the terrible night on King Road? I'm like, what?
Terrible is a car accident.
Right.
Terrible is like you lose all your money. This is way worse than terrible.
Right. It would be better.
A kind of bad night on.
Yeah. Or
right.
Nightmare on King Road. Like I can come up with 1 million that are better than the very
terrible
stuff happened on King Road.
She gets into exactly what is leaked as compared to what is public.
Right. So the program includes details and materials, including video footage, cell phone records, and photographs of documents that are not publicly available through official channels. The show repeatedly emphasizes the non-public nature of this information, stating it was obtained from unnamed sources who were close to the investigation and that the materials were obtained exclusively by Dateline. Much of the, quote, investigative material presented by Dateline was taken out of context and will not be admissible at trial because it lacks reliability.
Obviously, that's a huge point. That is a huge point. The worst thing that could get released is evidence that will never make its way into trial. And that is the type of thing that the courts, we like to keep things open and be about transparency, but that's the type of thing when you've got the state trying to put some bullshit nonsense in, you've got to keep it out of the public because they'll latch on to it and think it's got validity when it doesn't.
Yeah. So much
that could be me actually after watching it. I mean, quite honestly,
I think it's a lot of people.
All right. I mean,
that's what we're talking about. Things being
100% admitted.
And that's what I'm talking about. There's evidence that we may have heard in a probable cause affidavit or, through various filings that's never going to make it into evidence because it's not reliable. So that's why you have to wait to trial. And
that's what it seems with the evidence about where the phone was and what direction that he was traveling. All that seems
all kinds of shit. It could be the Amazon searches. I mean, they're litigating it. I mean, he's letting a lot of stuff in. Like they've litigated quite a bit of it.
But let's get into it because they give us all of it.
All right. So the leaked materials appear carefully curated to promote a narrative of guilt. 100%. Like no one's walking away from that episode thinking that Bryan Kohberger's innocent, right?
I got to rewatch it.
That had a very, very measured narrative and it was guilt. Like there's no question about it. It's like you watch that thing, you're not walking out like, I don't know. You're like, wow, they got this guy nailed, man. It's like, so it's like you got to take shit with a grain of salt. That's why we're always telling you over here, you got to wait till trial. The source of the leak is most likely someone currently or formerly associated with law enforcement or the prosecution
Wait,
team.
you skipped a line because she's quoting the judge there.
Where? Oh, as this court acknowledged in its May 15th, 2025 record and documented record hold order, the source of the leak is most likely someone currently or formerly associated with law enforcement or the prosecution team. If that is the case, it raises urgent and serious questions about the objectivity, judgment, and credibility of the individuals tasked with investigating and presenting the state's evidence, particularly those who may be called as witnesses, the identity of those involved, their motives, and any efforts to conceal their conduct go directly to the heart of the witness credibility and the integrity of the state's case. The apparent leak is not only an egregious violation of the court's non-dissemination order, it enabled Dateline to gild rampant speculation with a veneer of credibility. When purportedly exclusive information surfaces through a media broadcast shortly before trial, particularly information attributed to unnamed sources with access to the investigation, it carries a heightened aura of credibility and secrecy that can deeply influence public perception. Unlike official disclosures, which are typically accompanied by context and procedural safeguards, leaks framed as exclusives are perceived as uncensored truths that the public was not meant to see. This insider framing enhances the material's persuasive power, suggesting that it is both authentic and revealing of the case's hidden realities. That's a really well-written paragraph there.
Yep. And give us specifics.
So this episode includes things such as repeated speculative assertions regarding the assailant's motives, including unfounded allegations of sexual motivation. I found that shocking when they put that shit in there. Amongst many things. Dramatic reenactments and animations depicting the alleged crime created by the show's producers without basis in the evidentiary record. Emotional interviews with individuals connected to the alleged victims, accompanied by evocative music, photos, and videos designed to elicit strong emotional response. The broadcast repeatedly bolstered its speculative claims through the use of so-called expert commentary, including individuals identified as law enforcement professionals and academics. These commenters were permitted to make sweeping assertions about the defendant's alleged motives, psychological state, and personal history, none of which are grounded in evidence before the court, while the program repeatedly emphasized their training and research and years of experience to lend undue credibility to their conjecture. This type of testimonial mimicry improperly mirrors expert witness testimony in a trial setting without the safeguard of cross-examination or evidentiary standards, effectively presenting the public with a one-sided, unvetted narrative that shapes jurors' perceptions before any admissible evidence has been presented. Thank you, fucking Ann Taylor.
Yep.
Thank you, fucking Ann Taylor. While the program occasionally inserts disclaimers such as, "We don't know what happened," these brief caveats do little to mitigate the cumulative impact of an extended narrative constructed through selective imagery, emotionally charged reenactments, and detailed speculative descriptions of the crime. When viewers are presented with a cohesive, visually reinforced sequence of events, especially when paired with commentary from individuals styled as experts, the overall presentation fosters a sense of authenticity and truthfulness that is difficult for viewers to disregard. Steve, was it difficult for you to disregard it?
Absolutely. Yeah, totally. And like you said up there earlier, like they kept saying whatever they said to try to like mitigate it to, we don't actually know the facts or whatever. It was just above there. I don't remember hearing that at all, actually. You were so the hard hitting shit.
I mean,
no, they did an amazing job. Like, no, they absolutely.
Yeah, an amazing job of setting this guy up to get convicted.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, do you get her point? You see where she's coming from with it?
I do. Yeah. No, totally.
So an occasional passing verbal disclaimer functions more as a legal formality than a meaningful check on prejudicial perception. And most viewers will leave with the impression that they have seen a reliable reconstruction of events. Steve is my exhibit A.
Right.
The Dateline special, which aired just weeks before the trial, will not even be the last pretrial media bombshell. Best-selling crime author James Patterson, who, if you know, Patterson's a huge author, has written a book about the murders titled The Idaho Four, An American Tragedy, scheduled for release on July 14th, some 16 days before trial.
And if anyone didn't know before, they sure as hell do now.
Yeah. Before jury selection is slated to begin. The blurb for the book describes Mr. Kohberger as a brilliant grad student, loner, apparent incel, and he's going all in, and explicitly tells the reader, "Now you are the jury. The evidence is in." The publisher boasts of unmatched access to the investigation, including interviews with local law enforcement. I mean, what the fuck? This suggests that the apparent Dateline leak was not the only violation of this court's non-dissemination order. The 6th and 14th Amendments.
I wonder if they could file a motion to file an emergency petition to prevent the release of this book.
They should. Why wouldn't
I'm trying
they?
To think,
how got plenty of time to do it now.
Well, so here,
July.
Yeah, here's how I think it might play out. If and when they find out who the leak is, if it turns out that guy's like, yeah, I talked to Patterson, I think they've got the grounds to shut his shit down until after trial.
Yeah, I've got to think about the potential causes of action, whether you can make a claim like that against him. But just so you guys know, back when
I think it would be like a restraining order.
Well, I know, I understand that, but I'm trying to think about whether that's something you can bring against the against the book.
If it's not, it needs to be, and it's grounded in the 6th and 14th Amendment. Like this guy's life, I'm sorry, outweighs your profits for your book that you're trying to sell 2 weeks before trial. Go fuck yourself.
It's an interesting.
It's interesting
legal question of whether that is a cause of action. You can bring a claim, restraining order that could be brought against him. I mean, it is irreparable harm.
It is.
No doubt about it.
It is. It's interesting. It's interesting.
And when Bob's dad, after Bob Sr. Represented Gacy had given the lawyers a release allowing them to write a book, but the book was purchased. They got money, right? And they had to give it all back because the victims sued and said he should not be able to profit off of our.
And they didn't win, but by them suing, it scared off everybody in terms of.
I thought they did win.
No.
Oh,
no.
I was like, oh, they changed the law since then.
No, like but it scared off the movie people and the book people. They're like, we're not trying to buy a lawsuit here. So, the 6th and 14th Amendments guarantee the right to a fair trial by an impartial jury. A continuance is necessary to fully investigate the leaks and to mitigate the prejudicial effects of such inflammatory pretrial publicity occurring so close to the current trial date. And then she cites Shepard v. Maxwell. Supreme Court held the defendant was denied a fair trial due to a massive, pervasive, and prejudicial publicity that the trial court failed to mitigate. So the court emphasized the trial judge's responsibility to ensure the defendant receives a fair trial free from the influence of prejudicial media coverage. The court explicitly noted that a continuance may be required to protect the defendant's rights.
I think that she felt this was the actually such a strong argument. She'd stick it at the end, and if all else failed, that was going to win.
Yeah, especially because she knows where he's at with it.
Right. Yes, he made his opinion.
Right.
How pissed off he is, and she's like, "All right, here we go."
This is, I mean,
she so good though, man. I mean, this entire thing is amazing, quite frankly.
Yeah, I mean, she.
Dude, Kohberger couldn't have landed with a better fucking attorney. Dude. Honestly, to be appointed, she's fucking incredible.
She's fucking an amazing attorney. She just is. It's like people saying that she's trying to buy time. Like, you have like no idea what it's like to try a death penalty case. It's like people shouldn't say that unless you've walked a mile in the shoes of a person defending.
And it's her job to get a continuance.
Literally her job.
I mean, you always want to continue a death penalty case or a life sentence case as long as possible when it comes to even, actual legitimate things, obviously, but any continuance you can get for any reason is beneficial to your client because the more time that goes by, that's typically helpful.
I mean, like, I think my counter argument by the state is probably living somewhere in the world of, all right, we hear you, the Dateline thing, bad. The James Patterson book, bad.
But
we understand, but delaying this trial isn't going to cure that issue because this isn't just an Idaho case. It's a global case. Like, everybody is watching this case. And for the purposes of Idaho, they can't move it out of that state. It doesn't matter where they go.
Right.
I mean, there is not going to be a situation wherein you're going to be able to find 12 jurors that have not heard of the case. It'll be varying amounts of knowledge. I think that there will be plenty of people that live in Idaho that are like, oh yeah, I heard about it. I don't know any of the details, but I definitely heard about it. And those are the people that you're going to want. Like, the odds of them finding, and they'll find some people that are like, I have no idea. It's like, I say this all the time. I'm like, I could go down like right now in the city.
Some people truthfully and some people maybe not truthfully, though.
Yeah, well, right. That's the other thing you have to worry about. You always
that's a scary part for sure.
Yeah. Well, people that want to get on the jury for various reasons, they're trying to cash in after the fact. I mean, some people see getting on a trial like this as a lottery ticket. Because as soon as I'm done, I'm going on the morning show circuit as a juror, and they're all going to pay me. And then I'm going to write a tell-all novel.
Well, or they have formed such a strong opinion that they want to.
Well, that's terrifying.
See that to the end. I mean, that's definitely a real and true risk.
I prefer the grift than the person with like blood in their eyes trying to go in. They're like, I don't give a shit.
Dude.
I'm convicting them. Yeah, I mean, I'd rather have
not either, man.
Yeah, I mean, but
all right.
Again, that's like, that goes to what we're saying. It's like, I love that people are passionate about justice in this country, and like the people that are screaming that they believe that Bryan Kohberger is innocent. I love them. I mean, Alice and I are defense attorneys. You are the people that give me hope in society. No matter which way I'm feeling right now, matters not. Like, we need people in this country to challenge authority, to challenge the government on these cases, not just to assume that every person that they arrest is guilty of the shit. We live for you people. You people are the lifeblood of the defense bar. So don't ever take like what I'm saying pre-trial. That's why I'm always saying that over and over and over in lives. I don't give a shit if I'm saying I think that the case leans guilty right now, because I haven't seen the evidence vetted at trial.
Right.
And when I give my opinion at that point, then if you're mad at me, be mad at me. But right now, I'm just telling you from a strictly just like completely objective observation in terms of how the evidence as it's presented at this moment in time, without it being vetted, it's powerful evidence on its face in the eyes of a juror.
Which proves Ann Taylor's entire point here, that she needs that time to put forth her own counter narrative. So in closing, it ends with, this request is not made lightly. Defense counsel has worked around the clock, actively preparing for trial since appointment to this case, filed all motions in a timely manner, complied with expert disclosure deadlines, and has expected to proceed on schedule. However, it has become clear that without additional time, the defense cannot complete review of the necessary discovery, meaningfully respond to all of the state's amended experts' disclosures, and incorporate the information into an effective defense and finish critical sentencing phase investigation. While prompt administration of justice is important to both the state and Mr. Kohberger, the constitutional guarantee of a fair trial outweighs modest delay. And because the majority of cases ending in the death penalty are later overturned for error, the public interest lies in ensuring a fair trial in the first instance. A continuance will ensure that Mr. Kohberger's fundamental constitutional rights are honored, and that any verdict rendered rests on a fair and complete presentation of the facts, not on forced haste. And in my humble opinion, even without seeing what's in the ex parte portion, which I can guarantee you is as compelling as it can be. I mean, that's all I can say. It's as compelling as it can be. Anything that could possibly be seen as benefiting the defense, any additional lines of investigation are being told to the judge in there to almost, tie his hands to say, I've got no choice but to give this woman a continuance. And
yeah, that's going to happen.
Yeah, on the face of this, I think it's going to happen.
I think it has to. I think it has to. I really do. I just can't see a world in which it doesn't happen, because I mean, he's got to err on the side of caution. Right. He's got to take her at face value, and this is a pleading, and she's not going to come in lying to a court about what she hasn't been able to get done and what she has. And then on top of it, it's compounded by the whole Dateline issue, which is super compelling. But I think the bigger issue is what she hasn't been able to get done yet. I think she's put her best effort. Her and the team have put their best efforts forward. It was trying to rush through and get everything done that they can, but that they couldn't. And then it's exacerbated by the fact that they're releasing this shit that is like putting Kohberger on blast on the guilty train. And
it goes to, again, our member Bluebird 711. She says she thinks that to not have the jury sequestered is insane, and she highly doubts over 3 months they're not going to see something, and that's another real risk here. I mean, to literally sequester a jury for 3 months is like so horrible for the jury. Be away from their family, their phones, their electronics, their work for 3 months, just locked down on this case. But it does seem like one of those cases that is necessary. However, I would have thought the same on Karen Reed, and the judge did not sequester the jury. So,
God, if any needed to be sequestered, it would be Karen Reed, and probably even when we get to Kohberger. But good God.
But she also asked about the concern
brain.
for Chad Daybell in the same regard. I didn't follow Chad Daybell's pretrial or trial really all that much. I know that you and Jay covered it, or
what?
Chad Daybell's trial.
Yeah, like the first 10 days of it.
Right, but we didn't keep up with the pretrial. I would have expressed concern, as disgusting as I think Chad Daybell is, that he would have been entitled to a fair trial or a continuance if it was necessary. But I know with Lori Daybell, the state violated the order, and they didn't have discovery ready in time, so that was a remedy. And I think in the Daybell case, I don't know that his lawyers were as aggressive early on. And I think that they might have gotten that discovery sooner, but I honestly didn't follow it close enough to fairly comment on it.
All right. So before we dip into going through the comments, so here's the other thing that I've been thinking about a lot.
Guys, hold on 1 second. I gotta get my dog. I'll be right back.
Okay. So like Joe Jackalone hit me up and he's like, so if and when they find who the leak is or leaks are, is it criminal contempt or is it civil contempt? So just so you guys understand, so if it's typically criminal contempt happens from something that's going on in the courtroom, like typically. And if it's indirect civil contempt, that means that it's something that happened outside of the courtroom, and it's typically where somebody has violated a court order. So, and like Allie and I had a very brief conversation about it because I bounced it off you. I'm like, which way do you think it would go? And, and I wanted to point out to you that, he talked about criminal consequences.
Right. I mean, disobedience of a court order can carry criminal penalties. I just,
I think it would depend on who it was. Like if it's a cop, I think, like, here's what my thought was on it. I think that if it turned out to be a prosecutor, that he would drop the fucking hammer on them, because that is such a breach of the ethical duties of that office. I think that he would file. He would have. See, and the difference is that with when you're dealing with civil contempt, especially indirect civil contempt, you're not going to get. You don't have all the safeguards of the Constitution,
right? Because they're not trying to punish you; they're trying to force you to do something you weren't supposed to do.
It's a difference between compliance and punishment.
Right.
Criminal is strictly punishment, but what the criminal contempt means is that person gets a trial if they decide to fight it. There's due process with that.
Yes.
Whereas if he's just naming them or just saying, "Hey, I'm finding you in contempt of court," indirect civil, you don't get those rights. You're not afforded those constitutional rights of due process and stuff. He's just saying you fucked up, and But the question then becomes, where's the compliance part of that? They're not going to do it anymore.
That's what I'm saying. That wouldn't be a compliance. That's why I guess he's saying it's criminal or civil, because the compliance side of it is what things were you putting in place to prevent this from happening in the future, and obviously the turning over of all of this information, that's a civil compliance issue. Like, you got to give me your phone logs, your call logs, your chat history.
I mean, I would think that some of our diggers out there would have already started finding it, because I have a strong inclination to believe that it was probably a cop who's no longer a cop. So have you guys dug into all of our true crime armchair sleuths? Have you guys figured out which cops are no longer cops that were originally on the case, who've either retired or quit? I think it's probably them. But how are they getting access to the actual evidence if they're no longer employed? That's the thing that kind of fucks with me on that concept. Because clearly, typically, y'all, victims' families aren't given any of the evidence. I saw somebody talking about Steve G turned over a 911 call. That's not how this.
That would be bizarre. They never get.
That would be bizarre if
they were called in and allowed to hear evidence, then that's rare.
That's bizarre,
right?
That's just like, it does not happen. It does not happen. Like victims' families are not made privy to the investigation or the evidence in the case. They'll, and they want to know. I mean, understandably, it was Bridge Guy.
All right. So say something that ends the podcast portion, then start answering people's questions, or I don't know how you want to handle it.
Say what?
Like a closing for the podcast and then start answering people's questions.
Okay. So, in terms of what we've learned here today, I think that ultimately, and I think that I agree with you, Allie. Do you think it'll get continued, Steve?
I do, yeah. After everything I've seen and hearing the legal opinions, and seeing how pissed Hippler was before this motion was filed, yeah, I think he will. I think he should.
Yeah, I think it should as well. And then additionally, do you believe that they will come up with who the leak is? We'll end on that.
That I hope so. Yeah, like I hope they do, because I want to see something happen to the leaker. Honestly, like.
Me too. What do you think, baby? You think they'll?
I don't know.
I don't know. I feel like they're all, you know how cops are. I mean,
it's so rare anything like that comes out at the end of the day, though, right? Like you'll get your hopes up.
I think Coffin Daffer is the key to that. She's former Fed. She said, "I've got a source." All right, who is it?
Yeah, and I think they're definitely going to come up with the leaker. And hey, what's up, T? Even if the leaker is a victim's dad, okay, so Steve G would not be the leaker. He may have been the ultimate leaker, but it's whoever from either the cops or the prosecutor's office that gave it to Steve G is the leaker. like Steve can't be the leaker because he's not a cop or a prosecutor. He doesn't have access to that.
Part of the investigative team.
Right. Somebody leaked that to him. So whoever leaked it, if that's what happened, Steve's, he's a victim's family. He's like probably exactly how I would be if that was one of my kids. I'd be out of my fucking mind. Like, yeah, I'd be unhinged. like people giving Steve shit. I'm like, dude, if that was one of my kids,
that's me on. I feel the exact same with the Steve.
I do too. Like I would have been questioning the investigation. I would have been doing all the same shit. It's like people are like, I can't imagine how hard it would be to sit there keeping your mouth shut. So, but the bigger point is that Steve wouldn't be the guy. Steve's not the leaker. He was the leakee, and he may have given information to other people, but that's still, he's not the source. The source is the person who leaked the actual evidence. So, look, this case it's only going to keep growing. It's only going to keep rolling in terms of, it's going to be a huge trial. It just is. It's going to be an absolute banger of a trial that I hope to make it out there. If Allie will let me go for a week, maybe we'll each do a week out there.
I don't know that I'll be able to.
Yeah. But it's going to be like a 3-month trial or something.
At least. It's
going to be nuts. So,
what are your final thoughts, Steve?
What are your final thoughts, Steve?
I don't know, man. Like I said, I've been basically completely tainted by the last Dateline episode. From seeing the stuff that if what was leaked is true, and I think if a jury was to see that stuff, whether it's tossed out or not, but let's just say they did, I think that would be pretty substantial, even beyond the knife sheath with the DNA. But even with just the knife sheath and the DNA, I think that it's pretty crucial. But yeah, I may still change my mind. Do not forget that. I may tomorrow be dancing around the middle of this on X and poking the bear.
I mean,
a lot of those out there.
The only time your mind should change is at trial after you see the evidence.
No, but I mean, he's to his point. You can shift pre-trial if you're making a.
And in the trial, it could 100% happen. Honestly,
right.
Well, I mean, that's the only place that can.
I'm not married to shit.
Right. I mean, you can.
If you are married to shit in the chat, what's going on? you need to step back.
Okay, like Larisha and also Kim. I don't think I'm making myself clear. They are not the investigative arm. Like
well, but somebody told her, right? That's your point.
I understand. I understand what they're saying, that if Steve is the one who leaked it, I get it. I get what you're saying, but that's not who the judge is pointing his ire at. He's looking because Steve didn't have access to the evidence. Somebody gave it to him.
And Coffindapper said she had a law enforcement source.
Right.
So.
I mean, like, right. She's claiming she's got, you guys understand what I'm saying? I hear what you're saying, but like, he's a problem, but he's not the problem. The problem is the one who leaked it from either law enforcement or the prosecutor's office to him or whoever else. Like those people that are the only ones who have access to this evidence. Those are the ones that need to get hammered. Steve, if it's him, he needs to get yelled at, be told not to do that anymore. Like,
I don't think he would jeopardize the case. I don't think that the father would, but I mean, I have no idea what people are talking about, why they think it was a dad, but I don't know that the dad would jeopardize the case by releasing information that he learned from the police, knowing that could.
Well, Steve is very much of the mindset that they got the right guy.
That's what I'm saying, but that would help the defendant by releasing that information. It could help the defendant. It could exclude information. It could, who knows what. I mean, I don't think it necessarily will. I'm just saying it's a risk that I'd be surprised that a parent would take, knowing that there's
a real quick poll.
All right, I'm leaving you, and we're not holding Steve hostage. He can hop off whenever he wants.
Yeah, Steve has to go to work.
I'll check you guys later.
It's already 10:30. Past Steve's time.
Hell, I'll stay up late anyways.
All right. Bye, babe. Love you. See ya. Take care. She didn't even say goodbye to anybody. She just dipped.
I'm out.
She just dipped. So yeah, man. This case, it's a mind blower, really is. And and people are passionate about it on both sides. And
they are.
But it's like,
I have to every day. I have to step back and kind of have to readjust, because I also get really emotionally invested one way or the other. Somebody on X will trigger something in me that will make me lose my mind for a bit. It's just how it goes.
Yeah,
this trial's a lot. I'm trying not to let that happen as much, because at the end of the day, either like you or they don't. It's whatever, but always have your opinion and do not be afraid to change it. Period.
Yeah, and here's the other thing is don't hate people that have a differing opinion than you. It's like that is just so fucking bizarre to me. It's like, it's like I mean, look. I'm the two cases that I've come flat out and I'm like unequivocal on. I believe that Richard Allen is factually innocent. I think that he was railroaded, and I believe that Karen Reed is factually innocent. And I think they're trying to railroad her. And I'm basing that, like, I've had the benefit of watching a trial in that case. So that's why I feel comfortable in saying it. The two witnesses that are so compelling to me that no one's ever changing my mind on that are those two ARCA guys. And that's it for me. That begins and ends it. I get two guys of that quality telling me that vehicle was not involved in a motor vehicle pedestrian strike and that body was not struck by a vehicle. That's good enough for me. That's it. There's been nobody else that's been put on by the Commonwealth that even comes close to dissuading me and what I believe in terms of those two witnesses. They're just, and the reason they're so powerful, Steve, is because they weren't hired by either side. Like that is the difference for me. Like every expert in every case is hired by one side or the other. They are hired guns. They're being paid to give a specific opinion, and it's never going to hurt either side's case. So you're getting what you paid for in that sense. These two fucking dudes were not hired by anybody, and they formed their opinion long before anybody knew they existed. That's why, to me, they are the most powerful witnesses you could possibly ask for in any circumstance. And to me, they're absolutely devastating to the Commonwealth. So we'll see how that shakes out. What do you got going on, dude? What's going on over at PB?
Let me do a little plug real quick. Yeah. So anybody that's new in here, a lot of people have come over and subbed up tonight. Thank you guys so much. But yeah, you'll get a lot of cool stuff with me. I've been covering the Phil Spector trial for a year. But here's what I kind of wanted to plug. Something that after the Karen Reed trial is over, I've got Linda Kinney Bodden coming on for Feral Friday to watch the Phil Spector movie with me.
Oh, I love it. Tell them
that's going to be insane.
Tell them why that matters.
She is one of the defense attorneys of Phil Spector, and as everyone knows, that if you follow her on X and on YouTube, she's all over the Karen Reed trial. Who also Karen Reed's defense attorney is Alan Jackson, and he's the prosecutor in the Phil Spector trial. So it's super interesting. But yeah, I can't wait to get her to come on for a Phil Spector special on Feral Friday. Yeah, a lot of cool stuff is going on, but that's every murder church every Sunday morning come through. 9 a.m. is when we do the Phil Spector trial. Other than that, on a Friday night, we do something called Feral Friday. We hang out on YouTube for just a bit before we go over to another website called kick.com/publiclybuzzed, and we'll watch cops, or again, we'll watch a movie or something and have a good time. But yeah, man, hold on. I got a note here. Oh, actually, one more thing I wanted to plug. On June 1st, I got a really cool Kohberger show coming up also. So speaking a little bit earlier about how they're going to be going through the entire life of Kohberger, some of the stuff that we know that is out there is some of the early postings that he made on a website called Tapatalk, tapatalk.com, and he would really get into how he was suffering from something called visual snow. And I'm going to have Jack from Never a Truer Word coming on and analyzing those words from his teenage posts on June 1st, and I believe that's a Sunday. So that's going to be super interesting to kind of get just a little bit deeper into the psychological aspect. I feel like, even though it is a teenage Kohberger, I feel like it could add some significance to what we, are seeing and know now. And then, yeah, also after Karen Reed is over, I plan on having another. I know you work with him pretty often. We're not often, but have potentially criminal Sean.
Yes, love Sean.
I've worked with him a little bit in the past, but I've never had him on a Feral Friday, and I want to have him on there to kind of just shoot the shit, maybe watch some cops or something. And but yeah, anybody that's not in here, please sub up. You're going to have a good time. Again,
when's that Sean live? Have you
after Karen Reed? Yeah.
Okay, I'll come on with you all.
Yeah, that'd be great, dude. Yeah, that'd be super fun.
Yeah, I'll come on and talk shit with Sean. Like, he's my
nice
boy.
Hell yeah. Right. So that's going to be huge shows are coming up. And again, I don't cover Karen Reed, but as soon as that one's over, I got some bangers coming out, and I am going to be continuing to cover Bryan Kohberger if you're in here tonight for that specifically. So yeah,
I love it.
Yeah, I appreciate the hell out of this stuff.
Of course. And so everybody, if you haven't subbed over at PB, we've been dropping it in the chat all night. Make sure you do. Steve's my boy.
Oh yeah. Hell yeah.
Great shooter. It's like, I just appreciate people that don't bend to the will of other people because they're afraid that people are going to be mad at them or hate them. It's a weird way to be. Like, we're allowed to disagree.
Dude, yeah.
Life, man. It's like,
and like you get to that point in your life, at least for me, where it's almost like, I don't know, like I was that person for a lot of my life, because I didn't want to make somebody mad, or I didn't want to get into an argument, or there comes to a point, at least for me anyways, where I was like, I would like to have my opinion heard, and it's not popular. It's usually not popular, actually. My opinion's almost never popular.
I mean, who gives a shit?
But I'm not afraid to share it.
You know what I mean? Who gives a shit? It's like,
yeah, no, dude, yeah. You know what? One thing that I found super interesting when I first started this, one thing that I took to heart was any negative comment, whether it was on YouTube or on X, anything. I was like, oh my God, that's a potential person that could be following me and be part of my crew. But at the end of the day, dude, being yourself organically and naturally and who you really are, those people that gravitate towards you after that, those are your real people. Those are people that are really truly with you. And you don't have to worry about what you're saying. You might piss somebody off. So yeah, I've basically, this is me. You're seeing me every single time I'm live. I don't mince words. I say stuff sometimes I probably shouldn't. And I regret things that I say sometimes, and I'm wrong all the time. I'm wrong often. So, but I'm also willing to admit that, and I try to have an open mind.
Yeah, same, dude, same. It's
like
the
truth.
Like from a law tuber perspective, it's if it's easy to be a fence rider. because then you're not turning anybody off to your shit, right? So it's like I've taken position on 2 cases that I've covered pretty heavily, and and it was probably a detriment to the overall size of the channel. But like you said, I mean, if people are gonna not like me or my content because of an opinion I have on a case, then you ain't my people. You know what I'm saying?
Dude, that's the best way to think.
Well, it's the only way I can think. It's like
it did take me a while to get there. It really did. Like in the early days, dude, I was like, oh my God, I've lost this person. I've made them mad. You can't do that. You can't do that.
I mean,
you're not gonna win them all.
You can't. They're like you're never gonna win them all. And it's like all you could try to do, like from my perspective, is just try to educate people on the system and how it really works. And a lot of times I just try to explain like what I'm thinking may be different than when I'm saying what I think a jury's going to do, because those are 2 very different things. I mean, you never know what a jury is going to do, but I know what evidence is powerful in the minds of jurors because I've seen it firsthand many, many times. So,
you have a really unique perspective, in the space. And I've seen you take a lot of heat on Exit on socials for your opinion that you haven't really swayed on at all. And I mean, it's just it's crazy. People see what they want to see.
Like, right.
It's like the narratives that people place on creators, and that's there's creators that I do not like that have narratives put on them that at the end of the day I'm like, that's bullshit.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
I mean, it's the world that we live in. I mean, it's like for me, I was hardened by, you have to have really thick skin to be a defense attorney. You just do. Because people be hating on you, you know what I mean? So it's like, for me, it's like water off my back. I don't give a shit, and it's like, I'm like, I've had people doing hit pieces on me and all kinds of shit.
Dude,
defense and all that bullshit. I'm like, whatever, man. I'm like,
you're at a spot right now where you're getting so big you're seeing a lot more of that because there's so many eyes getting on your product. And again, they disagree with you. And then you'll have people that, whether it's through X or whether it's through comments, they'll get sidetracked, but like, oh, you know what this guy really thinks, right? Like without that person even looking, they don't even look into your content. They just
have no idea
what someone said. It's well, you don't even actually know. You're just they've taken little pieces and put it together. Like, I don't know, man. That's it drives me nuts.
Don't feel sorry for it. It bothers me not, because there's more people that value what Alice and I bring to the table than don't. And the people that don't value it are people that have never listened to the content, have no idea what we're saying, and are just, like you said, they're going from what they heard from somebody else who also has never listened to our content. So, I mean, look, it's the world we live in, man. It's never going to change, and I'm here for all of it. I'm here for it. And I love the argument. I love the debate. I live for it. I really do. So, yeah, it is what it is. And I think it makes for great content anyway.
That's true. That's actually true. Like controversial stuff does get views. People like to jump on. I've actually debated that before. I'm like, do I want to, not go after a creator, but like take that person's perspective and kind of like almost on my show, debate it in real time or try to do a counter argument to it. And I've really dodged kind of like doing that, because it's almost like I think I could do it to where it wouldn't be a hit piece or like going after somebody where I could.
Well, if you're
about it, even if I don't agree, but
if you're inviting them on, it's not a hit piece. A hit piece.
Right. That's different for sure.
In the shadows and talking shit without allowing that person to provide.
Right. That is kind of what I was talking about, though. Like not talking shit per se, but to like show a clip of that person and then actually say why I don't agree with this. But the reason I don't do it is that because I think it'll be seen as me going after that person. Even though
the easiest way to
I don't do that
is just invite that person on. Like I have a standing invite to anybody who wants to come on that's willing to debate me on any case. I don't care. Like, I mean, that's what I do. You know what I mean? I don't like, I've done, like, Gray Hughes was a very adamant, Richard Allen is guilty. And I would go on his fucking show, man. I'm like, yo, Tony's a fucking good guy. And he's like, he seems to be thinking that Karen Reed's guilty. I give him the business. You know what I mean? It's we got pretty heated on our last interview, because he interviews me once a week, and I was happy to do it with him. You know, it's like, I love that. I love
that's cool. No, that's good content, honestly.
It really is. And like he's a straight shooter too. I mean, he's thinking the wrong way on that, but you know, I mean, like who am I to tell him? All I could do is give him the facts and be like, yo, dude, you're falling for the bullshit, you know? And he could say, well, you know, I hear you, but fuck off. I think you're full of shit.
Yeah.
And you know, so it's like, and it is what it is. I don't base whether or not I like somebody on whether or not I disagree with them about a case
yeah.
It's just, to me, that's crazy. You know, it just is. I don't know. But, you know, people are passionate, you know, and I don't want to diminish people's passion, because you know, that's why we exist in this space, man, because people love this stuff and they're passionate about it.
It's true.
You know, it's all good shit. True. All right. I love you, man. It's been a blast. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you, brother.
Go sub to this dude, Publicly Buzzed. It's a kick-ass channel. He's a kick-ass guy. And I'll be seeing you very soon, my friend.
Definitely, dude. We'll be getting together soon. Thanks, everyone. Thank you so much. I appreciate the hell out of it, brother.
All right. See you, man. All right. Let's go through some of these. Let's go through some of these things. You guys were busy here. I don't know. We got some new members. I owe some family hugs. Emerald Dragon Tarot card. Nice. I love it. Aw, family hug. Welcome to the fam. Ashley, new member. Family hug. Appreciate you. Shannon C, a new member. Family hug. Appreciate you. Johnny Loves. I missed the live earlier. If it's too complicated, I would donate 3 bags of popcorn to the one of our fans. You're awesome, dude. You're awesome. You're good, man. I know you would. Persephone Applewood, member for 13 months. Let's just call ourselves La Familia. I'm here for that. I love that. Thank you for being an OG, Persephone. Appreciate you. Sandy, member for 18 months. Seems like it's been a minute since I've seen you, girl. It's my birthday, and I'm happy to be catching you live. Happy birthday. Happy birthday, Sandy. If Allie was here, I'd sing to you. You know I would. Well, I wish you the happiest birthdays. I hope you had a wonderful day. I hope you were celebrated, because you're a wonderful human being, and we love you very, very much. So happy birthday to you, Sandy Ann. Mags, member for 5 months. Dateline and other crime shows have pretty much already convicted him. I'm waiting on the trial. Thank you. That's what you should do. Kraken popped in. Now we must unbrainwash the masses that someone being arrested means nothing. Good luck with that. I've been trying to do that for 25 years. Best gun losing detective, Bob, $5 holler. Do you think that now that the world is watching it will keep the process honest? Nope. And I don't mean the Canton Triangle. No, I don't. I think that we have to keep applying pressure. We have to keep demanding answers. I think we have to keep digging in. I think we have to, make sure independent journalists like me and others that aren't mainstream media are allowed access to the courts, allowed access to documents, so that we can keep the people apprised of what's going on. I think that's imperative. I'm about to start getting into big fights, because I'm over this shit with them saying that people that have YouTube channels that are trying to give people real information, actual information, are being shut out and not considered to be real media, whatever the fuck that means. I'm about to start picking some fights on that, because I'm sick of it. I was reading Jessica Machado's tweet thing. She put a thread about the shit that she's been going through trying to get in there. I mean, they're shutting them out. They're shutting everybody out unless it's people that have their narrative, and that is not the way this is supposed to work. It's just not how it's supposed to work. Bluebird, I don't know if you're still here, but thank you so much. Dateline is no big deal concerning this trial. I followed the case since day 3. I still haven't watched Dateline. 2 Datelines pre-Daybell didn't affect that jury. Just another tactic to delay and remove death penalty, in my opinion. So I disagreed with the last part. Daybell and Vallow, I mean, anybody who didn't think that those 2 clowns were guilty, I don't know what to tell you. I don't hear, does there exist a Lori Vallow is innocent crew out there? I mean, some people are just pieces of shit. Somebody committed these crimes, right? And Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow are monsters, and they're exactly where they deserve to be. So very different situation. That was to me, Like Lori's case was interesting because I just didn't know if they had the smoking gun evidence with her, to nail her on the conspiracy. Because I'm always looking at the statute and what they have to prove, and so like I'm not going on gut feelings, I'm looking at each and every element that has to be proven and can they get there. Thank you so much, Lise. Julio, member for 3 months, 201 months until I get my BS. Ooh, you and old boy, huh? What's his nut? What was his name? The Tuft, whatever the Tuft's name is. Oh, Shannon Burgess. That's right. Thank you for being a member, Julio. We love you. Best gun, losing evidence. What about the James Patterson book due to release July 14th? Well, we addressed that. That is an interesting concept of if there's any way that they can stop that thing from dropping. It's interesting. It's an interesting thing. Silent Murmurings, Canadian, $2. AT is all in to drop the death penalty, and she might get it. She might. I mean, I'm telling everybody in here not to be stunned if that is exactly what the remedy the judge chooses to apply. Bluebird 7-Eleven came back. I also think to not have the jury sequestered is insane. I highly doubt over 3 months they're not going to see something. I agree. I think that they need to sequester that jury. I really do. Because for that length of time, it's impossible for people to stay off their devices. It's impossible. Gold did it, but like that trial really only lasted like 4 weeks, and it was like they had them on lock. She would give them time. Like they'd have time where they could get, like, while they were being watched, they'd go out and get on their phones, which is crazy too. Bluebell again. Why was nobody concerned for Chad Daybell concerning this? Why was nobody concerned for Chad Daybell concerning this? I think because everybody was pretty confident he was guilty. Like his piece of shit wife had already been convicted. So that's why I wasn't. I can't speak for anybody else. I mean, that guy's a turd of the highest order. Miss T, bring Lana with Truth and Transparency on. It's time. I'll set it up. Because I'll definitely, especially now that I think there's going to be continuance, we'll have the time. Because like I was trying to set it up with her, and then just life happened and all kinds of shit was going on. But Lana knows I love her. Larisha Harris, $20 holla, hiding IgG from jury. Wrong. Agreed. And is a lie. Law enforcement needs to own up to jury about methods used despite their fear of not getting their guilty verdict. Prosecutors said in hearing, don't plan on using IgG. I knew lies. I don't think they will because they have his direct profile. I have much bigger issues with IgG. I think it's a really fascinating and useful tool for law enforcement, but I think that they have to have a fucking warrant before they that cannot be their tip that they're using to get probable cause. They have to have a warrant before that. They have to have dug up some evidence that allows them to use IgG. That's my feeling on it. It's really a fascinating subject area. Really, I've done a lot of reading on it, and it's a lot more than a tip. It is very powerful and very scary in the wrong, being used in the wrong hands. And thank you so much, Larisha. I always appreciate you. Lane Cleardale. Did I butcher that? Considering how much that was in the PCA that the state has already took back off, what actual evidence is someone supposed to believe? Well, the sheath. I'm telling you, man, the sheath is the thing for me. Like I hear people transfer, touchdown. They got a full profile, and it's his. The defense isn't even fighting that side of it. So it's like I've been trying to think from my perspective. If I was defending the case, like what kind of excuse short of the thing was planted can you come up with as to why it was there? Like, was he at the house at some point? Like, had he been over there? Did he gift it to somebody? And then they were in the house. I mean, it's like you try to think of all the different ways that thing could end up under the bodies. Tough road to hoe. It's a tough road to hoe. I admire the hell out of Ann Taylor, and I feel for her trying to overcome that piece of evidence. It's a very difficult piece of evidence to overcome. Bluebird, speaking of Ann's document, she dropped the new book was coming out by John Grisham. No, it's Patterson, not John Grisham. So isn't she doing the same thing as Dateline? No, I mean, she's making the court aware that another book is coming out and it hasn't been released yet, and maybe they can do something about it. So it's not Grisham. Grisham, I like John Grisham. You know, he's had some. I like his nonfiction stuff better than his fiction stuff, especially because he concerns himself with innocence and people that were wrongfully convicted, which has a very, very big place in my heart. Amiss, member for 7 months. Thank you so much. I've never seen that cute little smiley face guy. Did you Amiss? So I'm assuming it's Amy. Thank you for being a member for all that time. Larisha, I think it's Steve G leaked the 911 call prior to the release to 2 content creators, and I've heard him saying things on various shows I'd yet to see in evidence. Interesting. It's interesting. I mean, he's definitely been popping off. There's no question about that. I don't know that I had heard. I may have heard about the 911 that he may have leaked it. I just don't see how he's getting it in his hands unless cops gave it to him. And again, you got to go after those cops for doing that shit. They're the problem. He just exacerbated it. Thank you so much, Larisha. Chris K. No offense, you guys are great, but AT has had ample time to prepare, and she is delayed, hoping death penalty would be struck. I disagree, Chris. Respectfully, I've tried death penalty case, and it's a fuck ton of work. It's like a massive amount of work, and you know, like I said, the government's trying to kill somebody, so you know, and he's incarcerated. Like, I mean, the concept of hearing the word guilty, I get that that's kind of closure, not really. I mean, it's the best that we've been able to figure out to do for victims' families, but it's not like he's out walking the streets. The guy's in jail. So, like, just to, like, you have to err on the side of the Constitution always. But respect your opinion. DSN, $5 hollow. Appreciate you always, DSN. Kraken Studio, the real booty. Question: if law enforcement officers considered Uber Eats was a duality delivery, get X drug, I'm assuming that is, by a very specific food order, BK was tied to drugs at one point. We need the truth. It's an interesting concept. See, but that would mean, if that's the case, who made the orders? Anna? Xana makes the order late night, but it's not really a food order. It's interesting. It's food for thought. Definitely. It's definitely food for thought. I would hope that law enforcement would have looked into that angle. And if they didn't, you know who did? Ann Taylor. Like, that would not be something that she would not look into. I assure you. Like, we just read an entire motion of all the digging she has to do. But thank you so much, Kraken. It's an interesting concept there. Chris, 4 victims don't require multiple perpetrators. Ted Bundy, Kai Omega House, Richard Speck, nurse's apartment. Just saying. I agree. I mean, I think it could have been done. You know, I think it really, what it depends on is how much resistance was happening with each of the different victims. You know, it's like, it's strange to me that you hear the thump and I forget what they term it, like a whimper and a thump is picked up by the camera across the way there, but no screaming. Isn't that weird? And isn't it weird that Dylan, like, crying but no screaming? That's the only thing that makes me think that some people may have been asleep. But thank you so much for that, Chris. Jessica, Allie, your girls are certainly all your genetics. Well, not all. They have my genetics too. Voice and all. Beautiful. I agree. They are all beautiful, beautiful girls. Very, very beautiful. And they all do have good voices. Cam is, she's done some work with me on the pod in the Gacy season. She played the part of Kim Byers. She was reading Kim Byers' police statement. She did an amazing job. And Scarlett, of course, you've seen on our lives. You've seen Cam on lives too. Yeah, they are my heart. all three of them for sure. And thank you so much for that wonderful thing, that wonderful statement. Kristen S. Fax, Bob and Steve, I will love and admire you both, no matter if we were divided on cases. I would hope so. Period. Good. Defense Diaries are publicly buzzed. Bob, you know this. I do know that. We appreciate you, Kristen. Also formerly known as Kitty. We love you. Kayoka, hey, I really enjoy your channel. It's a pleasure getting to know you all. I've been wanting to try to get a hold of you. Kayoka, probably the best place, if they haven't dropped our email for the pod, the pod email is info@defensediaries.com. Like, that is a great way to get a hold of me. That's where most people can track me down through that. So it's info @defensediaries.com, which is the podcast name. And thank you so much for your generosity. T, I love you back. You know that. You know that. Plus, I don't know what we're disagreeing on, actually. We disagreed on Kohberger. Has sleuthy gotten into your brain? I love you, T. Afton, member for 12 months. Thank you guys for doing this. Of course, we're long overdue for this case. I'm very, very into this case. And I got to refresh my knowledge on a lot. It's like I've covered so much since like post-arrest. Like, I've fallen behind on motions, and it's a fascinating case for a law nerd for sure. Bluebird, I'm just here for the tech wizardry and family hugs. It's the best part of the show. Love you, Bluebird. Sky Goddess, thank you for the unexpected live. Love you guys. Love you back. And thank you for your generosity. All right, y'all. You guys are amazing. I love you guys all so much. Again, I just want to thank everybody for your incredible generosity tonight, and also for hooking my girl up, Cameron, my daughter. That really moves me. It's so touching. You guys are just an amazing, amazing group of people. And I love you no matter which way you think on a case. Like, I mean that with all my heart. I never base my opinion on somebody and whether or not I love them on how they feel about a case. I just will never do that to you. I promise. I promise. I promise. You can disagree with me all you want, and I still love you. And hopefully you love me back. All right, you guys, we love you. Oh, and remember, if you're still interested in donating to Cam, go to the community page. We got the QR code and the link in there. I don't know if it was ever dropped in here. We are super grateful to that. And I love to see her crushing everybody else in that from a purely just like, I love when my people win shit. So I love to see her like just crushing the whole fundraising thing. So you guys are amazing. I couldn't love you anymore, because without you, I am just an old. Oh, I almost forgot. Thank you, mods. I love you, mods. I love you guys so much. I almost hit the damn button again without thanking my mods. You guys are amazing. Thank you for all you do. Tracy, I adore you. Kasha, I love you. Afton, you're amazing. Pokey, you're amazing. Everybody else who's in here, who's been modding for me all night, I adore all of you. You're all just salt of the earth. Fabulous human beings. You make this chat what it is. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And Trace, thank you for getting me the docs that I needed for tonight. I appreciate you so much. And then finally, tomorrow, 2 p.m., we're doing our members only live. The voicemails have been coming in. We're going to go over what's been going on in Diddy. We'll talk about Kohberger a bit more. We'll talk about Karen's case. And then we're going to do what I love to do, which is listen to your voicemails, listen to what you guys have to say. I love hearing from all of you. Thank you, thank you, thank you 1,000 times over, because without y'all, I'm just an old man talking about a whole bunch of cases. Bye.